Chapter 84. In fact, in addition to avenging Sun Yuan, Sun Pingxi was also thinking about Murong Yu's army character formula. After all, the unparalleled speed and great Vidrawheel seal were both cultivation techniques in the army character formula. Zhu Shinzong was led by Elder Lin Zhilong and another Elder Qin Jiangshan. Elder Feng Ningbo didn't lead the team this time because his grandson died in the Demon Mountain trial. Just now, when Sun Pingxi released the aura of a half-immortal, many people far away in the periphery of the Demon Mountain felt this terrifying aura. At this time, Lin Zhilong and Qin Jiangshan were discussing which half-immortal expert had come here. Their keen senses told them that something big must have happened during this Devil Mountain trials. Swish! At this time, several figures teleported over. Lin Zhilong and Qin Jiangshan were almost shocked. Looking carefully, Lin Zhilong and Qin Jiangshan were shocked. The person who came was Sun Pingxi, the leader of Yuan Su sect. Although the two didn't have any relationship with him, he was still the leader of a sect. The two quickly stood up and saluted. Zhu Shinzong is simply too presumptuous. You actually allowed your disciples to kill my grandson. How should you be punished? Sun Pingxi looked at Lin Zhilong indifferently. His murderous aura filled the air. Lin Zhilong and Qin Jiangshan were shocked. They looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Sun Pingxi's narrow-mindedness and vindictiveness were well known in the cultivation world. If someone from Zhu Shinzong really killed his grandson, with Sun Pingxi's character, this matter wouldn't be settled peacefully. Death and injury are inevitable in the Demon Mountain trial. Whether your grandson was killed by my people or not, there's no evidence. I hope sect leader Sun won't frame me, Zhu Shinzong. Lin Zhilong said in a deep voice. So what if it was Zhu Shinzong's disciples who killed his grandson? Yuan Su sect had killed a lot of Zhu Shinzong's disciples. Usually when this kind of thing happened, the major sects would just turn a blind eye. But now, Sun Yuan was investigating this matter, which made Lin Zhilong and Qin Jiangshan very dissatisfied. The evidence is conclusive. Why would I accuse you? As he spoke, Sun Pingxi waved his hand, and the scene of Murong Yu killing Sun Yuan reappeared. Seeing this scene, Lin Zhilong and Li Qiye fell silent. The clothes that Murong Yu wore that day were Zhu Shinzong's. However, so what if this was the case? As everyone knows, the Devil Mountain's trial is only for Foundation Establishment disciples. There will definitely not be people of a higher realm entering. It was clear that this person had the power of 50 Panliang and was clearly a cultivator in the Heartbeat realm. In this year's Devil Mountain trial, there is no such person in our sect. Qin Jiangshan said coldly. Oh. Are you saying that the person is pretending to be Zhu Shinzong's disciple? Sun Pingxi said with a sneer. In that case, I hope that you Zhu Shinzong won't get involved in this matter. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Sun Pingxi coldly dropped these words and disappeared in a flash. After Sun Pingxi left, Lin Zhilong and Qin Jiangshan looked at each other and saw the doubt in each other's eyes. Elder Lin, what do you think about this matter? Qin Jiangshan said in a deep voice. Lin Zhilong pondered for a moment and said, in this Devil Mountain trial, all of our Zhu Shinzong's disciples are Foundation Establishment disciples. Although that Heartbeat Realm disciple was wearing Zhu Shinzong's clothes, he shouldn't be one of our Zhu Shinzong's people. Qin Jiangshan frowned. This matter is over just like that? I keep feeling that something is wrong. Even if Sun Yuan was killed, it is normal for the Devil Mountain trial. Sun Pingxi's reaction is too big. At this point, the two of them let out a sigh. Although the two of them were powerful and had already reached the body integration stage, they were far from being a match for Sun Pingxi, who was at the half-immortal realm. In front of Sun Pingxi, they didn't even speak. Just now, Sun Pingxi looked at them as if they were ants, making them feel helpless. Inform the sect. We can't let this matter go. In the following time, under Sun Pingxi's instructions, the cultivators of the Yuanshu sect began to search for Murong Yu's traces in the periphery of the Devil Mountain. Gu Ning and the others, even Sun Pingxi himself, began to search the periphery of the Devil Mountain with their powerful divine thoughts. The Devil Mountain was a very special place. Here, anyone's divine thoughts would be greatly suppressed. Therefore, even Sun Pingxi, who was at the half-immortal realm, could only cover a range of tens of miles with his divine thoughts. The periphery of the Devil Mountain was hundreds of thousands of miles. Even if Sun Pingxi wanted to search this place with his divine thoughts, it would take a long time. Moreover, in the range of the Devil Mountain, all means would be suppressed. For example, Sun Pingxi was at the half-immortal realm. Since he loved Sun Yuan so much, why didn't he leave any means on Sun Yuan? If it was outside the Devil Mountain, although Murong Yu's strength was powerful, however, it wouldn't be easy to kill Sun Yuan. Therefore, Sun Yuan had a strand of Sun Pingxi's divine thoughts attached to him. When Sun Yuan was attacked, this strand of divine thoughts would come out to take the attack. With Murong Yu's strength, it was a little difficult to destroy this strand of divine thoughts. However, on the Devil Mountain, such means were useless. Therefore, Sun Yuan was easily killed. After Sun Yuan was killed, the strand of divine thoughts that Sun Pingxi had left on him naturally dissipated. Because of this, Sun Pingxi used his essence and blood to reconstruct the scene at that time. Strong people at the half-immortal realm could already teleport. Sun Pingxi extended his divine thoughts to the maximum range and kept teleporting to search for Murong Yu. However, Murong Yu seemed to have disappeared from the world. Sun Pingxi had already searched thousands of miles around where Sun Yuan was killed, but still did not find Murong Yu. Human cultivator, how dare you trespass on the Devil Mountain? When Sun Pingxi teleported to the top of a mountain, a thunderous voice sounded in his ears. In the next moment, the void distorted, and a figure appeared on the mountain peak opposite Sun Pingxi, looking at him with a cold expression. Transformation stage, half-immortal realm cultivator. Human, why did you trespass on the Devil Mountain? The person who came was a middle-aged man. If Murong Yu was here, he would have cried out in shock. The middle-aged man was none other than the fierce man who went through the tribulation that year. Sun Pingxi looked coldly at the fierce man, but he was shocked in his heart. He knew that he would attract the attention of the strong beast kings if he entered the Devil Mountain. However, he did not expect that he would provoke the Devil Mountain Lord. The Devil Mountain Lord was also the master of the Devil Mountain. Of course, this was not a single person's Devil Mountain. The so-called Devil Mountain Lord was only the king of the Beast Kings in the Devil Mountain, and he controlled all the beasts. Once the fierce man ascended to the immortal realm, the Devil Mountain Lord would be inherited by another person. The role of the Devil Mountain Lord was not only to control all the beasts in the Devil Mountain, but also to intimidate the human cultivators. Lord of Demon Mountain, I did not come here to do anything detrimental to Demon Mountain. I just want to find a human cultivator. Even though he was the sect master of Primal Void Sect, an expert at the half-immortal stage, had to admit defeat before the Lord of Demon Mountain. He couldn't help but refuse to admit defeat. One must know that every generation's Devil Mountain Lord was extremely powerful. Moreover, there were many demonic beasts of the half-immortal realm within the Devil Mountain. This wasn't something that a mere half-immortal realm cultivator, like him, could contend against. The beasts in the Devil Mountain cannot leave the Devil Mountain, but human cultivators above the tribulation passing stage cannot take half a step into the Devil Mountain. Violators will be killed without mercy. Leave immediately, or I will personally invite you out. The Devil Mountain Lord looked at Sun Pingxi and said indifferently. Sun Pingxi was furious, and his face revealed a trace of anger as he looked at the Devil Mountain Lord. He was the sect master of one of the 10 great sects, a half-immortal realm existence. In a cultivation world, who did not dare to give him face. Didn't that person respectfully call him senior when he saw him? Even the sect masters of other sects would talk to him as equals. So why would they be so rude? What if I don't leave? Sun Pingxi's face turned cold. He had already successfully passed the tribulation a few hundred years ago and stepped into the transformation stage. And the Devil Mountain Lord had only passed the tribulation for less than 2 years. Sun Pingxi was confident that his strength was definitely stronger than the Devil Mountain Lord. Even though he had an immortal body, he was much stronger than the Devil Mountain Lord. So what if the Devil Mountain Lord broke open half of the immortal door? Since you don't want to leave, then I can only make you leave. As he spoke, a terrifying aura burst out from the Devil Mountain Lord. He suddenly stretched out his hand, tearing through space and time, and grabbing at Sun Pingxi. Sun Pingxi snorted coldly and punched out, smashing into the Devil Mountain Lord's hand. Rumble. After an earth-shattering explosion, the huge mountain peak that Sun Pingxi was on was directly pulverized by the terrifying impact of their attacks, leveling it to the ground. As for Sun Pingxi, he was unable to withstand the Devil Mountain Lord's powerful strength and was directly smashed into the ground. On the contrary, the Devil Mountain Lord's tall figure was still standing on the mountain peak, and the mountain peak under his feet did not even tremble, nor was it smashed into pieces. The difference in strength was obvious. The Devil Mountain Lord was able to suppress Sun Pingxi, who is also a transformation stage half-immortal. You are courting death. Sun Pingxi roared and smashed the ground. He rushed up, turning into a stream of light, and pounced towards the Devil Mountain Lord. The Devil Mountain Lord stood alone and stretched out his hand, smashing Sun Pingxi deep into the ground again. A dignified half-immortal realm expert was actually not a match for the Devil Mountain Master. The disparity was simply too great. In reality, it was not that Sun Pingxi was too weak, but the Devil Mountain Lord was too strong. With such strength, he was definitely the #1 person in the cultivation world. Devil Mountain Lord, you are too much. After being slapped into the ground by the Devil Mountain Lord twice in a row, Sun Pingxi was infuriated. With a furious roar, he smashed the ground and rushed up again. His aura was like the sea, like raging waves. The terrifying aura caused the void to distort, and even the void was torn apart. The furious Sun Pingxi's aura rippled, and endless power swept out. It was very frightening. Above his head, there were a total of 80 horned dragon shadows. Chapter 85. The Horned Dragon was the strongest dragon below the immortal realm. Although it wasn't considered a true dragon, it was extremely powerful. Generally speaking, the half-immortal realm had the strength of 99 horned dragons at most. Once a horned dragon transformed into a winged dragon, the winged dragon was already a true dragon. Once a horned dragon transformed into a winged dragon, it meant that the cultivator had stepped into the immortal realm and was ranked among the immortals. The strength of 80 horned dragons was considered a powerhouse even among the half-immortal realm experts. However, even so, Sun Pingxi wasn't a match for the Devil Mountain Lord. Seeing that Sun Pingxi was unwilling to give up and wanted to kill him again and again, the Devil Mountain Lord frowned. The Devil Mountain Lord couldn't help but frown. The fury in Sun Pingxi's heart was enough to burn the entire sky. Humiliation, a great humiliation. He wasn't a match for the Devil Mountain Lord and was slapped deep into the ground. This feeling of being an ant made him extremely unhappy and hadn't appeared for many years. He was the sect master of one of the 10 great sects, a half-immortal realm existence. Usually, he was high and mighty. Who didn't respectfully call him senior when they saw him? However, today he was repeatedly slapped deep into the ground like a fly. The furious Sun Pingxi's eyes were red, and his entire body was almost ignited by the fury in his chest. Raising his strength to the limit, he took out a spirit artifact, Flying Sword, and turned into a stream of light as he charged at the Devil Mountain Lord. The sword light wreaked havoc, splitting the sky and splitting the earth. The huge sword light seemed to split the sky in half, shattering the void as it slashed at the Devil Mountain Lord. The Devil Mountain Lord frowned and pointed with a finger. The black finger expanded with the wind and instantly became several hundred feet long. Then, the finger pointed at the terrifying sword light. Bang! After an earth-shattering explosion, the sword ray that was filled with shocking killing intent, which even split the sky in half, shattered. The Devil Mountain Lord's huge finger only stopped. At this moment, the Devil Mountain Lord opened his hand and grabbed at the void. The huge hand, emitting endless black light, was like a mountain descending from the sky. It covered the sky and the sun as it grabbed at an incomparably fast speed. Sun Pingxi was shocked to see the Devil Mountain Master shatter the sword beam that he had unleashed with all his strength with a single finger. However, before he could react, he saw the Demon Mountain Master's huge hand grabbing at him. Sun Pingxi was shocked. With a thought, Sun Pingxi teleported away. However, the moment he teleported, the Demon Mountain Master's hand, which was the size of a mountain, had already reached down. The huge hand grabbed the 80 silhouettes of horned dragons hovering above Sun Pingxi's head. Then the Devil Mountain Master clenched his fist, bang. The phantoms of the 80 horned dragons were shattered. Sun Pingxi let out a blood-curdling scream, and his body, which had just teleported, fell out of the void. The Devil Mountain Lord's hand rapidly shrunk and grabbed forward. The moment Sun Pingxi fell out of the void, he grabbed him by the neck and lifted him up like a chicken. A dignified sect leader of one of the 10 great sects, an existence of half-immortal realm, was unexpectedly lifted up like a chicken by someone. What a great humiliation! Sun Pingxi felt his vision turn black, and there was a sweet taste in his throat as he spat out a mouthful of blood. It wasn't the Devil Mountain Master who secretly killed him, but he was angered. If news of this were spread, his position as sect leader would be over, and he wouldn't be able to survive in the cultivation world anymore. Devil Mountain Master, you've gone too far. I'll fight it out with you. Sun Pingxi roared with a malevolent expression as he struggled. However, his strength had already been sealed by the Devil Mountain Master. No matter how he struggled, it was useless. Puff! Sun Pingxi glared at the Devil Mountain Master with a venomous expression as he spat out blood. He wished he could eat him alive. The Devil Mountain Master's move was too ruthless. This was simply a humiliation to Sun Pingxi. The Devil Mountain Master glanced at Sun Pingxi indifferently, without any expression in his eyes. There was only coldness, a coldness that made one's heart palpitate. When he met the Devil Mountain Master's gaze, Sun Pingxi's heart instantly turned cold, and a chill rose from the depths of his heart. At this moment, he finally woke up from his boundless rage. This was the Devil Mountain Master, a master who killed without batting an eyelid. Moreover, the Devil Mountain didn't fear his Yuan-Su sect at all. It could even be said that the Devil Mountain didn't fear the entire cultivation world, because as long as the demonic beasts of the Devil Mountain didn't leave the mountain, even immortal cultivators couldn't do anything to them. Because of this, it wasn't a big deal for the Devil Mountain Master to kill him, the sect leader of Yuan-Su sect. Our Devil Mountain has an agreement with you humans. We demonic beasts can't leave the Devil Mountain, but you humans can't take half a step into the Devil Mountain either. Not only did you enter the Devil Mountain, but you also went on a rampage. I can totally kill you, the Devil Mountain Master said coldly. Sun Pingxi's heart was sweating, and a trace of fear flashed across the depths of his eyes. A mere half-immortal cultivator dares to cause a ruckus here. Do you believe that I won't uproot your sect? The Devil Mountain Master seemed to be talking to Sun Pingxi, but he also seemed to be talking to himself. Our Devil Mountain has been silent for too long. The cultivation world has already forgotten about our existence. The Devil Mountain Master looked into the distance and suddenly sighed. However, Sun Pingxi's heart jumped in fright. If the Devil Mountain Master said this, could it be that the demonic beasts of the Devil Mountain were about to be born again? If that was the case, then it would be a disaster for the cultivation world. Scram, leave the Devil Mountain immediately, or I'll kill you without mercy. The Devil Mountain Master glanced at Sun Pingxi indifferently. Then his figure flashed and disappeared. When the Devil Mountain Master left, Sun Pingxi's strength had already recovered. However, he didn't dare to stop and quickly teleported away from the Devil Mountain. The Devil Mountain Master was simply too terrifying. He had passed his tribulation for less than 2 years and already had such terrifying strength. He had to send the news of the Devil Mountain Master or the demonic beasts of the Devil Mountain back to the cultivation world. Moreover, he was truly afraid of the Devil Mountain Master. Facing such an expert who could control his life at will, Sun Pingxi felt like an ant. wasn't a good feeling. Moreover, most importantly, he didn't want to die. Two half-immortal experts were fighting. As a half-immortal expert who had been famous for a long time, and also the sect master of Yuan Su's sect, Sun Pingxi was like an ant in front of the Devil Mountain Master, unable to withstand a single blow. In the end, he left the Devil Mountain dejectedly like a dog that had lost its home. However, no one else knew about the battle between the two experts. This was because even though they were fighting, their powers were suppressed in the vicinity. Moreover, the Devil Mountain Master was simply too powerful. The battle that happened actually ended in an instant. The cause of all this was Murongyu. The battle between the two half-immortal experts was also because of Murongyu. However, where was Murongyu now? In fact, Murongyu, the person involved, had already left the Devil Mountain. After killing Sun Yuan, Hichu had a premonition that something like this would happen. Therefore, Murongyu left the Devil Mountain with the fastest speed. At this moment, they were already over 10,000 miles away from the Devil Mountain. Yuan Su sect. After Sun Pingxi returned like a dog that had lost its home, the first thing he did wasn't to inform the experts of the sect about the Devil Mountain Master. Instead, he issued a warrant for Murongyu. Of course, he didn't know who Murongyu was, nor did he know what Murongyu's name was. The warrant only had a blurry image of Murongyu attached. 1,000,000 recovery pills. When the news came out, the entire cultivation world was in an uproar. Who was this unknown person? Yuan Su's sect actually used 1,000,000 recovery pills to arrest him. Then, the news of Murongyu killing Sun Yuan was revealed. At this moment, everyone finally understood why Sun Pingxi would spend so much effort to arrest Murongyu with 1,000,000 recovery pills. However, with no name and only a blurry image, it was easier said than done to find a cultivator in the vast cultivation world. After this, a piece of news came out which shook the upper echelons of the cultivation world. Fiend Mountain Lord was very strong. Although he had only transcended the tribulation for less than 2 years, he was still very strong. Although he had only been a half-immortal for a few hundred years, Sun Pingxi wasn't the Devil Mountain Master's opponent. Moreover, the most important thing was that the Devil Mountain Master's intention was that the Devil Mountain's demonic beasts were about to come into being. This was a big matter for the entire cultivation world. If the Devil Mountain's demonic beasts really came into being, it would be a catastrophe. At that time, the human cultivators would definitely clash with the demonic beasts. Blood would flow like a river, and the war would never end. Of course, this news was only known to the upper echelons of the various sections. If it was sent out, the entire cultivation world would definitely be in a state of panic. Ancient Spring City was a medium-sized city in the cultivation world. Different from the secular world's cities, this city was filled with cultivators. This was a city of transactions. The so-called city of transactions meant that this was a city of commerce. In Ancient Spring City, there were a large number of shops, auction houses, and all kinds of related hotels. In Ancient Spring City, one could even set up stalls to make it convenient for cultivators to trade all kinds of goods. This place was the same as the secular world cities. It was just that the people here were all cultivators. Although Ancient Spring City was only a medium-sized city, it was one of the more famous cities in the cultivation world. This was because it was the closest city to the Devil Mountain in the cultivation world. Although the Devil Mountain was notorious for its infamy, it produced many precious heavenly treasures and even the inner cores of demonic beasts. Other than the Foundation establishment stage disciples of the top 10 sects who would go to the outermost area of the Devil Mountain to train every year, there were many cultivators in the cultivation world who entered the Devil Mountain to adventure. They would kill demonic beasts and obtain their inner cores, or they would look for all kinds of precious medicinal herbs. However, most people did not need these things. Therefore, when they found out about these things, they would want to trade for things they needed. Therefore, Ancient Spring City was born as a response. In fact, there were many cultivation cities similar to Ancient Spring City in the cultivation world. Chapter 86. After Murongyu paid a certain amount of energy recovery pills, he finally entered the ancient spring city. As soon as he entered, Muronyu was shocked by the prosperity of the city. Cultivators came and went. There were all kinds of shops on both sides of the street, such as weapon manuals, elixir stores, and so on. There was also no lack of restaurants and inns. This was Muronyu's first time in a city of the cultivation world. He looked here and there, as if he was a person from the depths of a mountain who was entering a city for the first time. The prosperity of this place shocked Muronyu, but what made him a little unhappy was that not long after he entered the city, he was being watched. Muronyu's divine thought was very sharp. He found that there was always someone watching him from behind. Although Muronyu had found the two people who were watching him, the two people did not realize that Muronyu had found out about their existence. Unintentionally, Muronyu entered a secluded alleyway. With a flash of his body, he disappeared from where he stood. Whoosh! Whoosh! Not long after Muronyu's figure disappeared, two figures rushed into the alley. They were two young men. One was in the fusion stage, and the other was in the heartbeat stage. Their strength was not bad. That guy is gone. After entering the alley, the fusion stage cultivator found that Muronyu had disappeared and said in surprise. The heartbeat stage cultivator's face became serious. The other party had suddenly disappeared. It was obvious that the other party had found out about them. Junior brother, I'm afraid that person has found us. It's better to be careful. The heartbeat stage cultivator said in a serious voice. Are you looking for me? A voice came, and a stream of light quickly jumped from the side. With a burst of sword light, a human head flew high into the air, and blood spurted high into the air like a fountain. Boom! The heartbeat stage cultivator instantly burst out with his maximum strength. 51 coiled dragon shadows hovered above his head. Then, he took a step forward and threw a punch at the person who had just arrived. Sword light burst out, and a blinding sword ray tore through the void, slashing at the young man's huge fist. The tremendous force sent the young man flying. Rumble! The young man smashed into the house next to him, shattering it. With a flash of his body, Muronyu used the troop formula and chased after him like a shadow. The sword light exploded, about to kill the young man. Stop! Suddenly, a loud shout rang out and a monstrous hand emerged from the void to crush the sword beam that Muronyu had unleashed. A monstrous aura spread from afar. In the next moment, a figure appeared in front of Muronyu and the heart-stirring stage cultivator. Be careful. This is a spirit-severing expert. A middle-aged man stood between Muronyu and the heart-stirring cultivator. He was very powerful. Hichu immediately saw through the other party's cultivation and said to Muronyu with a serious expression. A spirit-severing stage cultivator was considered a master in the cultivation world. Hichu had just recovered to the spirit-severing stage. Although Muronyu was powerful, he was definitely not a match for a spirit-severing stage cultivator. After all, there was a gap of 5 realms between them. Muronyu frowned slightly and looked at the middle-aged man with a gloomy face. When he was about to speak, the middle-aged man said indifferently, Ancient Spring City forbids any fighting. Anyone who violates this rule will be killed without mercy. As he spoke, the middle-aged man coldly stared at Muronyu with eyes brimming with killing intent. He clearly thought that Muronyu took the initiative to kill someone and blamed Muronyu. In fact, it was Muronyu who took the initiative to kill someone. But was it only because of himself? The middle-aged man didn't ask for the reason and immediately blamed Muronyu without any reason. This made Muronyu feel extremely displeased. At the same time, his face became gloomier. On the other side, the heartbeat stage cultivator was shocked. Muronyu was only at the revolving reflection stage, and he had already seen it. However, Muronyu's methods just now had killed his fusion stage junior brother with a single slash and nearly killed him. He was a heartbeat stage cultivator, which was 2 realms stronger than Muronyu. But he couldn't even withstand a single blow, which made him wonder if this person was the person in the bounty. With a cold snort, Muronyu glanced coldly at the middle-aged man and the heartbeat stage cultivator, then turned around and was about to leave. Stop! At this moment, The heartbeat stage cultivator took a step forward and shouted at Murong with murderous intent. You killed my junior brother and destroyed the house here, and you just want to leave? Shi Jiedong looked at Murong indifferently with a face full of killing intent. When he saw the attitude of the middle-aged man, Wei Xian, one of the captains of the ancient Spring City Guards, Shi Jiedong was secretly happy. He knew that Wei Xian was not interested in Murong. Therefore, when Murong was about to leave, he would never let the other party leave so easily. Murong stopped and turned to look at Shi Jiedong. The corner of his mouth overflowed with a sneer. Who do you think you are? A fox pretending to be a tiger? If I want to kill you, there will be no place for you in the world. Shi Jiedong was startled at first. Then he flew into a rage. Are you threatening me? I am in ancient Spring City. If you have the ability, come and kill me. Shi Jiedong was now fearless. Even if he was not Murong's opponent, so what? If Murong dare to make a move here, Wei Xian would never sit back and watch. Sure enough, after hearing Murong's words, Wei Xian's brows wrinkled slightly and his face showed a trace of displeasure. This Murong really didn't know what he was talking about. Did he really dare to make a move in ancient Spring City? However, even if he didn't like Murong as the captain of the ancient Spring City Guards, he couldn't do anything. After all, his duty was only to maintain the safety of ancient Spring City. Unless Murong made a move again, he absolutely couldn't make a move. Idiot! Murong sneered and looked at Shi Jiedong. Since ancient Spring City has a rule that I can't make a move, I naturally won't make an exception for a group of trash like you. However, if you want to die, I will wait for you outside the East Gate City. As he spoke, Murong suddenly rose into the air and then used the Phoenix Spear. He turned into a stream of light and flew out of the East Gate of ancient Spring City. Wei Xian's eyes flashed, and he snorted coldly. His figure flickered and disappeared. Outside the East Gate, Shi Jiedong sneered and then quickly disappeared. Murong's speed was very fast. It didn't take long for him to leave ancient Spring City and finally appear on a barren mountain. The reason why he asked Shi Jiedong out was that he felt that something was strange. Wasn't it strange to be followed inexplicably? He had to get to the bottom of this. It didn't take long for several figures to fly over from the direction of ancient Spring City. The figures were like streams of light and quickly landed on the barren mountain near Murong. They immediately surrounded Murong. It was Shi Jiedong and the others. Looking at this scene, Murong just sneered in his heart. More than a dozen people, wearing the same clothes, were obviously from the same sect. Among them, in addition to Shi Jiedong who kept sneering at him, there were 3 experts in the heartbeat stage. The rest were all cultivators in the fusion stage. For experts in the heartbeat stage, if it was before Murong entered the Demon Mountain and met so many experts in the heartbeat stage, he would turn around and leave without saying a word. But now, he just sneered again and again, not putting the other party in his eyes. Is it this kid? Only in the revolving reflection stage. A young man looked at Murong and frowned as he turned to look at Shi Jiedong and said unhappily, although this kid is only in the revolving reflection stage, he killed junior apprentice Brother Ren with 1 sword, and I was almost no match for him. Moreover, he is the same person as the person on the wanted list. If he is that person, as long as we take him down, we will get 1,000,000 recovery pills. That's 1,000,000. Shi Jiedong said with his eyes shining. Even if it's not that person, since he dared to kill our green light sex people, he must die. Another heartbeat stage cultivator said coldly. Hearing this, Murong vaguely understood. It seemed that someone was looking for him, and he was worth 1,000,000 recovery pills. Only 1,000,000 recovery pills. Murong was somewhat disdainful. He felt that he was worth far more than this. However, these idiots from the Green Light sect wanted to take him down for 1,000,000 recovery pills, which really made Murong unhappy. In fact, Murong didn't care much about these pills. He didn't know the value of the recovery pills in the cultivation world. 1,000,000 recovery pills for the top 10 sects was perhaps just a drop in the ocean. But for a small sect like the Green Light sect, It was an astronomical figure. Therefore, when Jiedong found out that Murong Yu had entered the ancient spring city, he found that he was the same person on the Yuan Su Sec's wanted list. Therefore, the things that happened later happened. Want to take me down to exchange for the recovery pills? Go get it from the underworld. Murong Yu sneered, then used the soldier formula and instantly disappeared from where he stood. A spear shadow flashed, followed by a cloud of blood mist blooming in the void, followed by a scream. A fusion stage disciple of the Green Light sect was smashed into a cloud of blood mist by Murong Yu's spear. Bang! After killing the fusion stage cultivator of the Green Light sect, his body swayed. The black spear in his hand swept out like a divine dragon. After an explosion, a nearby fusion stage cultivator was killed by Murong Yu before he could react. You're courting death. It was not until this time that the people of the Green Light sect reacted. After a furious roar, they immediately released flying swords one by one and slashed at Murong Yu. For a moment, the sword light swept across the void, and the sword chi was everywhere. Thousands of sword chi sealed the void like a spider web and strangled Murong Yu's head. Murong Yu sneered and activated the purple ribbon holy robe at once. Suddenly, a circle of purple light rose from his body and enveloped his whole body. Chapter 87. At the same time, Murong Yu let out a low roar and his body shook violently. Suddenly, 50 black and extremely condensed coiled dragon shadows appeared out of thin air above his head. Originally, each of Murong Yu's dragon shadows was almost the size of a mountain. However, at this time, his coiled dragon shadows were only as thick as a bucket. This was not because of the regression of his strength. On the contrary, when the 50 coiled dragon shadows appeared, a vast aura was released, and it was several times stronger than before. This was due to the fact that Murong Yu's energy had been compressed even more. Although the dragon shadows were smaller, their power was multiplied. The long spear shook, and it was as if the power of the 50 coiled dragons was concentrated on the long spear in his hand. In that instant, the Phoenix spear exploded with a towering aura. It was like a churning, roaring black dragon. Dark, godly demon Pan Ruan. Murong Yu suddenly roared as he stomped on the ground, creating a few bottomless cracks in the ground. His whole body borrowed the force and bounced into the distance. At this time, the long spear erupted with an even more terrifying aura. With a fierce burst, the spear pierced toward the sky, as if it was going to pierce through the firmament. At this moment, something strange happened. Following Murong Yu's angry roar, the spear pierced the sky at the same time. Two gigantic figures that looked like demons appeared near the long spear. One black and one gold, two incomparably tall shadows, and at the same time emitted an incomparably powerful and terrifying aura. The two figures were very tall, and their bodies emitted a powerful aura. Dark, godly demon Pan Ruan. Could these two figures be the demon god shadows? Originally, the two shadows had their eyes closed, but at the same time, Murong Yu pierced the sky at the same time. The demon god shadows suddenly opened their eyes, and then the two punched the sky at the same time. Boom! A terrifying aura suddenly erupted, and the void was suddenly torn open with a huge crack that was a few miles wide. Bang! 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 At the moment the demon god shadows attacked, the flying swords that the Green Light sect's disciples had summoned were all shattered without exception. Puff! The flying swords were shattered, and everyone immediately vomited blood. At this moment, the figures of the two gods and demons disappeared into the void after the heaven-shattering punch. Murong Yu, on the other hand, soared into the air and rushed out of the encirclement. Actually, after saying so much, all of this happened in an instant. 10,000 swords art. Murong Yu stepped on the army formula and soared into the air. At the moment when the flying swords of many disciples of the Green Light sect were destroyed, Murong Yu patted the storage bag at his waist and took out two flying swords of the lower grade magic tool level that he had received from the sect. Whoosh! two streaks of sword light burst out and instantly shattered countless space-time. They quickly pierced through the bodies of the two disciples of the Green Light sect, bringing out two stunning flowers of blood. The two fusion stage cultivators of the Green Light sect didn't even have time to react before their hearts were pierced and they died. After killing the two fusion stage cultivators, the two flying swords once again flew towards the two Green Light sect disciples, dying. However, this time, the disciples of the Green Light sect had already reacted. The four heart-stirring stage cultivators attacked at the same time. The incomparably violent power suddenly blasted the two flying swords away. However, at this time, Muronyu had already swooped down like a goshawk pouncing on its prey. The long spear in his hand carried a terrifying aura that could shatter heaven and earth. It shattered the void and transformed into millions of spear shadows, enveloping the disciples of the Green Light sect and piercing down. Boom! The disciples of the Green Light sect attacked with all their might and attacked the void with their strongest power. They wanted to shatter Murongyu's attack and kill Muronyu. After an earth-shattering explosion, the power of the two sides fiercely collided. The terrifying impact of the explosion immediately shattered the few hills under their feet. With so many people added together, it was a battle of hundreds of Panwu. What was a Panwu? It was the Dragon Clan. The power of one dragon was enough to overturn rivers and seas, let alone hundreds of them. Therefore, when their power collided, the hills within a radius of more than 10 miles were instantly shattered. Even the void was torn apart, and a terrifying huge crack was formed. At the same time, when the ground was shattered, the few fusion stage cultivators of the Green Light sect were also shattered into a cloud of blood mist. The four heart-stirring stage cultivators were slightly better off, but they were also sent flying while vomiting blood. As for Murongyu, who had taken the attack of everyone from the Green Light sect, even if he was powerful and had a strong physical body, he could still be shattered. However, the purple ribbon holy robe on his body blocked most of the attack for him. Whoosh! Murongyu was directly blasted into the sky. The terrifying power shook Murongyu's chi, and blood in his body churned, and blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. His right hand that was holding the spear was even numb from the shock, and the phoenix spear was almost sent flying. However, the purple ribbon holy robe had blocked most of the attack for him. Otherwise, he would have been killed. At this time, although he had suffered some minor injuries, it was not a big deal. "Die, you bastards of the Green Light sect!" Murongyu shouted, and his whole body turned into a stream of light and rushed down quickly. During this process, the long spear vibrated, pierced the sky, and locked onto Shi Jiedong to kill him. Shi Jiedong spat out a mouthful of blood, and a few of his meridians were also broken. His power was in chaos, and his strength dropped sharply. At this time, he suddenly saw that Murongyu had locked onto him and was strangling him. He was so scared that his face turned pale. However, Murongyu wouldn't show any mercy just because he was frightened. These people wanted to take him down to get the 1 million recovery pills. Poof! With a stab of the spear, Shi Jiedong was immediately turned into a cloud of blood mist. Go! Seeing how fierce Murongyu was, the other disciples of the Green Light sect were scared out of their wits. With a loud shout, the remaining 3 heart-stirring stage cultivators turned into streaks of light and fled towards ancient Spring City. "Where do you think you're going?" Murongyu shouted coldly and chased after them. He used the army formula and was as fast as lightning. He caught up with the last one and smashed him into pieces with a stab of the spear. The speed of the army formula was unparalleled in the world. Even though the remaining 2 heart-stirring stage cultivators of the Green Light sect tried their best to escape, they still could not escape from Murongyu's pursuit. Murongyu executed the troop formula and chased after him like a bolt of lightning. He killed 2 people in a row. At this time, the last heart-stirring stage cultivator had rushed to the east gate of ancient Spring City. As long as he rushed into ancient Spring City, he could save his life. This was because Murongyu did not dare to kill people in ancient Spring City. Even if Murongyu dared to kill people in ancient Spring City, the experts and the guards of ancient Spring City would not allow Murongyu to do so. As long as he escaped into ancient Spring City, he could naturally kill Murongyu in the future. Fang Xinan gritted his teeth and said. However, Murongyu did not stop and continued to chase after him. Where do you think you're going? How could Murongyu not know what Fang Xinan was thinking when he saw him? With a loud shout, the two flying swords turned into two shocking sword rays. They tore through many things and shattered time and space, strangling Fang Xinan with incomparable speed. He felt the terrifying killing intent coming from behind him. Fang Xinan was shocked. If he did not turn around to block, he would be cut into pieces by the flying swords, even if he escaped in ancient Spring City. He had to block it. With a furious roar, he threw a backhand punch at the flying sword that was flying towards him. 53 panned chi shadows circled above his head, looking extremely ferocious. Dark, godly demon Prajna. At this time, Murongyu suddenly shouted. The black spear in his hand burst out with divine light, and the two godly demon shadows appeared around the divine spear again. At this time, the spear that was infused with all of Murongyu's power was thrown out by Murongyu. Chi! The sharp sound of the spear piercing through the air rang out far and wide. It was so sharp that it pierced one's eardrums. The spear seemed to pierce through endless time and space, shattering the void and appearing behind Fang Xinan in an instant. At this time, Fang Xinan had just shattered Murongyu's two flying swords with a punch. He then used the tremendous force of the flying swords to charge into ancient Spring City. However, at this time, a terrifying aura that made Fang Xinan's heart tremble and made his soul tremble locked onto him and rushed over. Fang Xinan was shocked. He didn't have time to look back and roared angrily. The power of more than 20 pan chi poured in his right hand, and he punched out fiercely. Rumble. Puffed. After an earth-shattering explosion, a flower of blood bloomed in the void. Fang Xinan's right hand was instantly smashed into a bloody mist. An incomparably mournful scream spread far and wide. Bang! After the phoenix spear shattered Fang Xinan's right hand, it directly pierced through his body. In the end, the spear's remaining power did not diminish. It carried Fang Xinan's body and nailed him to the wall of ancient Spring City. It actually pinned Fang Xinan to the wall. Behind the wall, the phoenix spear was still trembling. Fang Xinan, who was nailed to the wall, widened his eyes. His face was full of shock, horror, and disbelief. It could be said that he died with his eyes wide open. Too cruel. Seeing this scene, the surrounding people were all shocked. Just now, some of them had seen Murongyu kill all the disciples of the Greenlight sect. For a time, Murongyu's ferocious power began to spread among the crowd. Whoosh! With a flash, a tall figure appeared on the wall. The person who came was Wei Xian, one of the captains of ancient Spring City's guards. He first glanced at Fang Xinan, who was nailed to the wall, frowned, and then looked at Murongyu with a gloomy face. You're causing trouble here again? Did I say that fighting is not allowed in ancient Spring City? Otherwise, you'll be killed without mercy? As he spoke, a powerful aura erupted from his body like a tide and swept directly toward Murongyu. Hearing Wei Xian's words and feeling the powerful aura from Wei Xian's body, Murongyu's originally calm heart immediately became a little angry. He looked at Wei Xian with a gloomy face and sneered. Which eye of yours saw me fighting in ancient Spring City? Although he was nailed to the wall, he was outside ancient Spring City. Chapter 88. Murongyu pointed to Fang Xinan's body and looked at Wei Xian with a sneer. He was unhappy with Wei Xian in his heart. No matter what the other party was, he was much stronger than himself. Who is this person? That is one of the captains of the ancient Spring City Guards, a spirit-severing stage cultivator. This kid dares to despise him so much? This kid is too arrogant. He simply doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Maybe he has a deep background and is not afraid of the ancient Spring City at all. However, he did not kill anyone in the city. Although that person was nailed behind the city wall, he is still outside the city. The people around were talking about it. But Wei Xian's face became more and more gloomy. It's good that you don't cause trouble in the city. Otherwise, once I meet you, I will kill you without mercy. Wei Xian looked at Murong Yu indifferently, then turned around and flew away from the city wall. Idiot, a dog relying on its master's power. Just as Wei Xian was about to leave, he heard Murong Yu's words. His figure swayed slightly, and a cold, killing intent flashed in his eyes. But in the end, he didn't say anything and flew back. Murong Yu reached out and recalled the phoenix spear, then walked into the ancient spring city with the spear on his back. Murong Yu killed more than a dozen disciples of the Green Light sect in one day, including 4 heart-stirring stage cultivators, and did not put Wei Xian in his eyes. In just half an hour, the news spread throughout the ancient spring city. The Green Light sect was just a small sect. Killing them was nothing. What they were curious about was the identity of Murong Yu. In the end, some people recognized that Murong Yu was the person wanted by Yuansu's sect. However, because the portrait was a bit blurry, and the arrest warrant said that Murong Yu was a heart-stirring stage cultivator, and the Murong Yu in the ancient spring city was just a revolving reflection stage cultivator. This made them suspicious, but also hesitant. However, there were already many people who had noticed Murong Yu. In particular, the disciples of the Yuan-Su sect in the ancient spring city had already begun to secretly monitor Murong Yu. On the other side, after the Green Light sect learned that more than a dozen of their disciples had been killed by a revolving reflection cultivator, many masters had already rushed over. He wanted to kill Murong Yu and seek justice for the disciples who were killed. In reality, whether or not they were really here for revenge was still debatable. They were probably here for the 1 million recovery pills. 1 million origin restoration pills was a huge fortune for a small sect or a disciple of a large sect. It was precisely because of this that many people followed Murong Yu after he returned to ancient Spring City. Not long after, Murong Yu completely understood why he was wanted. It turned out that it was Yuan-Su sect's doing. Could it be that the matter of him killing Sun Yuan had been discovered? After learning about this, Murong Yu frowned slightly. However, from the information he learned, it seemed that the other party only vaguely knew that he killed Sun Yuan, but they were not sure that he was the one who did it. However, as one of the top 10 sects, Yuan-Su sect actually spent a lot of effort to arrest him. Was it really just to avenge Sun Yuan? Murong Yu was a little puzzled, and Hichu was also a little puzzled. They both did not know that Sun Pingxi did not only want to catch him to avenge Sun Yuan. More importantly, Sun Pingxi took a fancy to his soldier character formula and wanted to seize it. But it didn't matter. Anyway, Yuan-Su sect was also looking for him, so Murong Yu was not worried at all. Want to capture him in exchange for the 1 million recovery pills? Then use your life to exchange for it. Murong Yu was not the type of person who would not fight back and would not talk back when scolded. Since Yuan-Su sect wanted him, then he would not care whether the other party was one of the top 10 sects or not. Even if it was one of the top 10 sects, so what? If one came, he would kill one. If 2 came, he would kill 2. On that day, Murong Yu directly found an inn in Ancient Spring City to stay. Anyway, in Ancient Spring City, even Yuan-Su sect would not dare to make a move here. In the next 2 or 3 days, Murong Yu swaggered around Ancient Spring City, attracting a lot of people. Even when he was resting, there were many people in the inn watching him. Murong Yu, you coward, if you have the guts to kill my Green Light sect's disciple, then don't always hide in Ancient Spring City. On this day, a thunderous voice suddenly came from outside Ancient Spring City. The voice was forced out by someone using true inner force and spread far and wide, rushing directly into Ancient Spring City. In an instant, the entire Ancient Spring City heard this voice. The people of Greenlight sect are here to seek revenge. Hearing this voice, the busybodies in Ancient Spring City immediately began to talk. I wonder how that Murong Yu is doing. Will he accept the challenge? Someone said, Murong Yu, coward, come out of Ancient Spring City and fight to the death. The people of Greenlight sect shouted outside the city, and the people in Ancient Spring City were also in a heated discussion. However, As the person involved, Murong still lingered on the streets of ancient Spring City without a change in expression, as if he did not hear this voice at all. Murong, come out of ancient Spring City and accept your death. Such voices continued to come from outside the city. Murong is really not afraid of the people of Greenlight sect, is he? Seeing that Murong had not responded, the crowd began to talk about it. Are you stupid? If it were me, I wouldn't go out and die. After all, Murong is just a cultivator of the revolving reflection stage. This time the Greenlight sect has sent an elder of the Severed Soul stage. Severed Soul stage? That's Murong for sure. Murong wouldn't be so stupid to go out and accept his death, right? A group of idiots, Murong, am in ancient Spring City. If you have the ability to come in and kill me. If you don't have the guts, then don't bark like a mad dog outside the city. At this time, a loud voice suppressed all the voices and spread far away. Outside the ancient Spring City, the people of the Greenlight sect were enraged when they heard the voice. What kind of place was ancient Spring City? How could a small Greenlight sect dare to be presumptuous inside? Murong, you'd better stay in ancient Spring City forever, otherwise my Greenlight sect will kill you. The Severed Soul stage elder of Greenlight sect, Tao Litan, said angrily. A group of cowards, like mice, not only relying on their numbers, but their strength is also so much stronger than me. And you want to bully a rogue cultivator of the revolving reflection stage? Your Greenlight sect is really too shameless. Schwa. Before his voice fell, Murong had already appeared on the east wall of ancient Spring City. On a small slope outside ancient Spring City, the dozens of people of Greenlight sect all stood there, looking at the direction of ancient Spring City with murderous intent. It's not that they didn't dare to enter the city, but they wanted to force Murong out and take him down outside the city. Young master, I'm right here. What do you dare to do to me? Murong looked at Tao Litan and said with a sneer, Boy, if you have the ability, come down. A Greenlight sect disciple shouted. Murong's eyes were like torches, and he looked over coldly. If I go down, do you dare to come and fight? The Greenlight sect disciple who was shouting was suddenly speechless. He was only in the heartbeat stage. Murong killed heartbeat stage cultivators like slaughtering dogs. Killing him was just a matter of a blink of an eye. He didn't dare to come out and fight. Seeing that this person was speechless, Murong suddenly sneered. This is your Greenlight sect's elite disciple? A heartbeat stage cultivator actually doesn't dare to accept the challenge of an early stage, revolving reflection stage cultivator. You better go back and cultivate in seclusion, so you don't come out and embarrass yourselves. Ha ha! On the city wall, there were many cultivators outside the city. After seeing this scene, they couldn't help but laugh. They all looked at the Greenlight sect disciples with disdain. Tao Litan was furious. He turned to the heartbeat stage cultivator and said, Luli, go out and take down Murong. Luli pulled a long face and said very unwillingly, But you're a heartbeat stage cultivator, 2 whole stages higher than him. Don't tell me you can't take him down. Tao Litan's face was gloomy, and his eyes were full of murderous intent. Seeing Tao Litan's murderous eyes, Lu Li's heart trembled, and he finally rushed out on his flying sword. Murong, come down and die. Lu Li stood in the void and shouted at Murong. Murong stood on the city wall and looked at Lu Li motionlessly. I didn't expect you to come out and die. Since that's the case, I'll fulfill your wish. Before he could even finish speaking, Murong had already activated the soldier formula and turned into a streak of light as he charged at Lu Li. Just as Murong's figure flickered and left the ancient Spring City, Tao Litan, who was on the small hill, let out a sinister laugh. He stretched out his hand and grabbed at Murong. Boom! The void shattered, and a big blue hand broke the sky. It reached out from the 9 heavens and directly grabbed at Murong. Murong let out a strange cry and disappeared with a whoosh. Just as he disappeared from where he stood, the monstrous hand had already grabbed down. Even the ground was scratched out with an incomparably huge crater. bastard, despicable, and shameless. You dare to sneak attack. Morong stood on the city wall again and looked at the people of the Green Light sect on the small slope and cursed. Fortunately, he had been prepared for the other party's sneak attack. Coupled with the army formula, his speed was unparalleled in the world. Otherwise, he would have been injured by Tao Litan or even killed directly. Morong stood on the city wall and cursed at the outside. All kinds of vicious words spewed out from his mouth, and he cursed until the sky darkened and the sun and moon dimmed. His scolding made the people around him feel ashamed. But the people of the Green Light sect were speechless. They were so ashamed that they wanted to find a hole to hide in. In fact, the Green Light sect's elder Tao Litan only attacked Morong. However, he was a dignified spirit-severing cultivator. It was too shameless to attack Morong, a revolving reflection cultivator. Moreover, there were many people around who had ideas about Morong. Chapter 89. First, they saw Tao Li Tian's sneak attack, and then heard Morong use curses. Immediately, some people supported Morong. In this way, the people of Green Light sect were so ashamed that they wanted to die. In fact, these people did not sympathize with Morong because they had good intentions, but they did not want Morong to be taken down by the people of Green Light sect. After all, Morong was now worth 1 million yuan recovery pills. Morong stood on the city wall and cursed for a while. He felt that it was meaningless and then went back. Immediately, the people of Green Light sect also entered ancient Spring City. Their disciples were even more blatantly monitoring Morong. It seemed that as soon as Morong left ancient Spring City, they would make a move. In fact, was Green Light sect having this idea? In ancient Spring City, many people had this idea. Over the next few days, Morong spent his days gloomily. As soon as he left the inn, there were many people in front and behind him. These people were like his loyal bodyguards. No matter where he went, they would follow closely. At night, Morong used the power of Hichu to set up a restriction in the room to prevent people from breaking in. Then he directly entered the Hichu Luoshu world. Hichu, is there any way to kill these people? These days, Morong's heart was filled with a lot of anger. If he relied on the Hichu Luoshu world, he could quietly leave ancient Spring City without a second person knowing. However, Morong was not willing to do so. If he just sneaked away, this was not his style. Moreover, these people dared to have ideas about him. They really deserved to die. Even if he had to leave, he had to kill these people. Even if he could not kill all of them, he had to kill some of them. He wanted to let them know that even though he was only a small revolving reflection cultivator, he was not someone to be trifled with. In fact, if Morong revealed his identity as Zhuxinzong's disciple at this time, the Green Light sect would not dare to touch Morong even if they were given 10 times the courage. However, Morong didn't want to do that. After all, Zhuxinzong could protect him for a while, but not forever. Moreover, the years he spent in Morong's house made him deeply understand that one should never rely on others. Everything should be in one's own hands. With your strength, you can only deal with heart-stirring stage cultivators at most. Although I have recovered to the severed soul stage, my strength is not very strong. I can't deal with many people. Hichu pondered for a moment and said. Morong pondered. At this moment, Hichu continued. However, if you want to kill them, we don't have to do it ourselves. There's a chance. Morong's eyes shot out 2 rays of light. Looking at Hichu, he quickly asked, "What's the way?" "Formation." Hearing this, Morong was suddenly discouraged. He knew nothing about formations. However, then he looked at Hichu with shining eyes. Since he knew him very well and knew that he didn't know much about formations, Hichu must have his own plans. Although your teacher isn't an expert in formations, after so many years of being influenced by what I've seen and heard, I can more or less set up a few killing formations. The top 10 sects all had their own shops in ancient Spring City, either dealing in pills, flying swords, magic weapons, and so on. The manager of Yuan Su's sect shop in ancient Spring City was a severed soul stage powerhouse called Xiawei. He had been here for hundreds of years. Usually, The shop was very quiet, and no one made trouble. However, today, there was a commotion coming from the shop. Who dares to make trouble in Yuan Su-sek's shop? Xiaowei frowned and walked out from the back hall with a gloomy expression. At this moment, there were dozens of people inside and outside the shop, filling the entire place to the brim. One of the shop assistants grabbed the hand of a black-clothed youth and said something with an agitated expression. The black-clothed youth had a look of disdain and impatience and was currently in a rage. What bullshit top 10 sects? Do you only sell these weapons? High-grade magic weapon flying swords? I think you're selling tofu dregs. 500,000 recovery pills for one? Why don't you go rob a bank? The black-clothed youth pointed at the shop assistants and cursed. The shop assistants didn't dare to fight back. It wasn't that they were well-mannered, but that they didn't know what to say. The shop assistant grabbed the black-clothed youth's hand as if afraid that the youth would slip away. Xiaowei frowned when he saw this scene. When he saw the black-clothed young man, a cold, killing intent flashed in his eyes. What's going on? Morongyu, what are you doing here? Xiaowei walked up and shouted coldly. At the same time, a powerful aura swept out and locked onto Morongyu. The black-clothed youth was Morongyu. Hearing Xiaowei's words, Morongyu shook off the shop assistant's hand and turned to look at Xiaowei. He sneered and said, I'm causing trouble? Everyone who enters is a customer. Is this how Yuan Su-sek treats customers? Oh, right. Is it because I expose your relationship of selling inferior products and you want to chase me away? Is this how Yuan Su-sek treats customers? Morongyu looked at Xiaowei and sneered. Morongyu, don't think that I can't do anything to you in ancient Spring City. Yuan Su-sek's shop is not a place where you can cause trouble. Leave immediately. Tisk tisk. Morongyu sneered and looked at the people around him. Everyone, be the judge. I just want to buy a flying sword here. You know that someone wants to kill me recently, so I have to buy a better flying sword. I heard that Yuan Su-sek has a good reputation and the quality of their flying swords is top-notch. However, you saw it just now. Although Morongyu was wanted by Yuan Su-sek, they opened their business. However, they were open for business, and anyone who entered was a customer. Naturally, they wouldn't refuse Morongyu. After Morongyu came in, the first thing he said was that he wanted to buy a spiritual weapon flying sword. One must know that spiritual weapon flying swords were extremely rare in the cultivation world. The entire Yuan Su-sek shop only had one spiritual weapon flying sword as the treasure of the shop. Of course, the shop assistants didn't believe that Morongyu could afford a spiritual weapon flying sword. Morongyu was also very straightforward and said that he wanted to buy a few high-grade flying swords in the end. Under the condition that he took out 1,000,000 yuan recovery pills, the shop assistants agreed to let him test the swords. Who would have thought that this test of the sword would result in a problem? Crack! A high-grade flying sword shattered as soon as it reached Morongyu's hand. This scene shocked the shop assistants and the people who had come with him. Then, Morongyu flew into a rage and said that Yuan Su-sek's shop was cheating him by using some ordinary iron to replace a high-grade flying sword. The shop assistants naturally didn't agree with Morongyu. In the midst of the argument, they took out another high-grade flying sword, but just like the first one, Morongyu crushed it to pieces. In a row, all 20 flying swords in the shop were destroyed. After crushing the 20 flying swords, Morongyu was about to leave. It was then that the shop assistants finally realized what was going on. Morongyu had purposely come to make trouble. That was why the scene just now had occurred. Xiaowei's face was so dark that it seemed to drip water. He stared at Morongyu with frightening, killing intent, as if he wanted to kill Morongyu. A high-grade flying sword cost 500,000 yuan recovery pills. Morongyu had destroyed 20 of them, which meant that they'd lost 10 million yuan recovery pills. Chapter 90. Even if the cost of the flying sword was not so high, the loss of a few million yuan pills was the least. Looking at the angry Xiaowei, Morongyu sneered and said, "What? You look like you wanted to compensate for the loss. You used those scrap metals to pass them off as upper-grade flying swords to cheat people. TSK, TSK. You really deserve to be one of the top 10 sections. People who don't know the truth use 500,000 yuan recovery pills to buy these scraps of metal. That's 500,000 yuan recovery pills. Ah. Xiaowei's expression was very wonderful. Murong destroyed 20 upper-grade flying swords. In principle, he must compensate for the loss. However, those upper-grade flying swords in Murong Yu's hands were just scrap metals. Wanting to compensate? That was extremely unreasonable. Because their upper-grade flying swords were scrap metals. Murong Yu had the word reason. If Yuan Su sect still wanted him to compensate, then their shop's reputation would really be lost. You leave here immediately. Our shop does not welcome you. Xiaowei held back the surging killing intent in his heart and said indifferently to Murong Yu. Murong Yu shrugged and, without a word, directly left the Yuan Su sect shop. Immediately, the crowd of onlookers also left. Not long after, the entire shop was only left with Xiaowei and a few shop assistants, as well as the scattered flying sword fragments on the ground. Looking at those flying sword fragments, Xiaowei felt a burst of pain in his heart. He still did not know how Murong Yu destroyed these flying swords. These were upper-grade flying swords. Even his spirit-severing stage flying swords could not easily destroy these flying swords, let alone Murong Yu. In fact, he suspected that there was an expert secretly helping Murong Yu. Otherwise, with Murong Yu's revolving reflection stage cultivation, it was simply impossible. Not to mention upper-grade flying swords, even lower-grade flying swords could not be crushed. If he had not guessed that there was an expert secretly helping Murong Yu. With Xiaowei's character, he would have already killed Murong Yu. How could he be so easy to talk to? Manager, are we really going to let him go just like that? One of the workers asked unwillingly. Xiaowei snorted coldly. Our Primal Void School is one of the 10 great sections. I'll make him spit out 10 times, no, 100 times over. I'll report this matter to the sect and let them handle it. After leaving Origin Void Sect's shop, Murong Yu immediately felt his body and mind relax. That's right, this time, he deliberately went to cause trouble. Didn't the Yuan Su sect reward him with 1 million recovery pills? In that case, he would collect some interest first. As for the rest, he would slowly calculate with Yuan Su sect. However, amidst the pleasure, Murong Yu felt some regret in his heart. What a pity about that flying sword spirit weapon. If it was destroyed, Yuan Su sect would probably be even more furious, right? A spirit artifact flying sword, even if it was the lowest grade of spirit artifact, first grade flying sword, would still cost tens of millions of origin returning pills. Although 10 million origin restoration pills was only the tip of the iceberg for large sects like the Yuanshu sect, it was only a drop in the ocean. However, it was good to discuss them. Most importantly, Murong Yu's motive was not only to discuss the Yuanshu sect, but more importantly, to ruin their reputation. Furthermore, Murong Yu had even prepared a huge gift for them. The news of Murong Yu easily crushing a superior-grade flying sword in Yuan Su sect's shop spread like wildfire and quickly spread throughout ancient Spring City. For a moment, it caused everyone shock. Naturally, they would not doubt the reputation of Yuan Su sect's shop. After all, that was one of the 10 great sects, and there was no way it could be faked. What they were shocked about was Murong Yu's methods. Could it be that Murong Yu had an expert protecting him in secret? Otherwise, with his strength at the revolving reflection stage, there was no way he could crush a superior-grade flying sword. However, to crush a superior-grade flying sword without a sound in front of everyone, it was at least a tribulation transcendence expert or even a transformation half-immortal. Otherwise, even a body integration cultivator would find it difficult to crush a superior-grade flying sword. Could it be that this Murong Yu was the future successor of some great sect or aristocratic family? This time, he came out to gain experience, and there was a half-immortal protecting him? In a short time, the rumor about Murong Yu's background spread like wildfire in ancient Spring City. As a result, many cultivators hesitated and did not dare to continue targeting Murong Yu. If there was really a half-immortal cultivator secretly protecting Murongyu, then these people would simply be courting death if they still had any ideas about Murongyu. However, other small sects and itinerant cultivators were afraid of Murongyu's vague identity. However, Yuan Su's sect of the 10 Great Sects was not afraid. This time, after hearing the report from the shop in ancient Spring City, Yuan Su's sect was furious. They were completely indifferent about losing 20 superior grade flying swords. They were furious that Murongyu was so arrogant. Wasn't this a public slap to the face of Yuan Su's sect? This time, a body integration cultivator led a group of experts directly to ancient Spring City and swore to capture Murongyu. The reason why they only sent body integration cultivators was because Sun Pingxi knew about Murongyu's identity. He was just a disciple of Zhushenzong and had no expert protecting him. A body integration cultivator was enough to capture him. If it wasn't for his identity, Sun Pingxi would have come to ancient Spring City and directly captured Murongyu. After all, he coveted the great Vajra chakra seal that Murongyu used that day. Now, Murongyu was a bit depressed. After collecting some interest from Yuan Su's sect, he actually scared off many cultivators who wanted to capture him. Originally, Murongyu had prepared a big gift for them. What do you mean by there's an expert secretly helping her? Murongyu helplessly sighed. If he had known, he wouldn't have done this. After all, crushing a superior-grade flying sword was a piece of cake for his spirit weapon physique. Ever since that incident, there were clearly fewer people watching Murongyu in the dark. Murongyu is just an itinerant cultivator. He doesn't have any expert protecting him. The reason why he crushed a superior-grade flying sword is because he has a spirit weapon on him. On this day, the news of Murongyu having a spirit weapon on him spread through ancient Spring City as though it had grown wings. As such, Murongyu was targeted once more. Furthermore, there were even more people this time round. After all, a spirit weapon was a flying sword. Even the lowest grade 1 spirit weapon was worth at least 10 million essence recovery pills. That was 10 times higher than the reward offered by Yuan Su's sect. It was a spiritual artifact. Even in the big sects, it was rare. When this news came out, even the disciples of the top 10 sects couldn't help but be moved. 3 days later, the number of people watching Murongyu was at least 10 times more than before. As long as Murongyu left ancient Spring City, someone would definitely make a move. In these few days, Murongyu had been in the inn and didn't come out. Then, he inquired about whether there were any experts like bodyguards. The news that he needed to hire bodyguards to protect him when he left ancient Spring City also spread out. Everyone knew that Murongyu was going to leave ancient Spring City. On this day, Murongyu finally came out of the inn. However, unlike before, there was a young man by his side this time. A severed soul expert. The young man just silently followed Murongyu's side. The two of them flew out of ancient Spring City. The cultivation of the young man was immediately seen through. Murongyu was protected by a severed soul expert and flew out of the city. This made those who coveted Murongyu believe that Murongyu was going to leave ancient Spring City. For a while, many people came out and followed Murongyu. So what if he had a severed soul expert protecting him? As the saying goes, ants can bite an elephant to death. Moreover, their goal was only Murongyu. A severed soul expert. The body integration stage elder of the Origin Void sect sneered when he heard the report. Then, he led his disciples and flew away. Whoosh! As soon as they left ancient Spring City, those people rushed over with murderous intent. Chapter 91. Moreover, the 6 of them might not work together to deal with Fei Mingzhong. Most importantly, they didn't dare to fight against Fei Mingzhong. Fei Mingzhong was at the body fusion stage. Although he was strong, the 6 of them were confident that they could escape even if they couldn't defeat him. However, Fei Mingzhong was backed by the Origin Void sect. This time, Fei Mingzhong represented the Origin Void sect. If they fought against Fei Mingzhong, they would be fighting against the Origin Void sect. For a moment, the 6 of them hesitated. Although they didn't dare to fight against the Origin Void sect, they didn't want to leave either. After all, Murong still had a spiritual weapon on him. That was a magic weapon worth tens of millions of recovery pills. These people were all cultivators from small sections. Some of them didn't even have a spiritual weapon. If they could seize Murong Yu's spiritual weapon, it would become their sect's most precious treasure. Then, their sect's strength would increase dramatically. Seeing their hesitation, Fei Mingzhong's face became gloomier and his body emitted a fierce killing intent. Swish! 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 At this time, the cultivators behind them flew over one after another. Out-of-body stage, silent spirit stage, heartbeat stage, and even fusion stage cultivators flew over on their swords. In a short period of time, hundreds of people had gathered here. Elder, a group of people from the Origin Void sect flew over and stood beside Fei Mingzhong. In addition to the manager of the ancient Spring City store, the Origin Void sect also had 2 severed soul stage experts. In other words, in addition to Fei Mingzhong, who was at the body fusion stage, the Origin Void sect actually had 3 severed soul stage experts. Moreover, in addition to these experts, there were also many out-of-body stage and silent spirit stage disciples. There were about 30 people. However, there were also 10 severed soul stage experts from the various sects and row cultivators on Tao Litan's side. In other words, for a mere Murong Yu, they actually sent out 13 severed soul stage experts and a body fusion stage expert. It wasn't hard to imagine how attractive Murong Yu's spiritual weapon was. Everyone, Murong Yu is a wanted criminal of our Yuan Su sect. We have already apprehended him. You may leave now. Xiaowei took a step forward and shouted. At this time, Murong Yu and the spirit-severing stage youth are still underground. In fact, when Fei Mingzhong made his move, he already knew that Murong Yu would not be able to escape. That was why he had so much time to waste here. Otherwise, he would have already grabbed Murong Yu and left this place. That's not how it is. Your Honorable Sect's wanted poster says that as long as you capture Murong Yu, you will be rewarded with 1,000,000 recovery pills. Although we didn't take down Murong Yu, we still participated in it. Is your Yuan Su sect going to do something about it? A severed soul expert stood up and said, That's right, we don't want 1,000,000 either. How about this? Everyone will get a share. Everyone will get 100,000 yuan recovery pills. Another severed soul expert said, That's right, 100,000 yuan recovery pills is just a drop in the ocean for your Yuan Su sect. We have a few hundred people here. It's only tens of millions. An out-of-body cultivator came out and said loudly. Apart from the disciples of the Origin Void School, everyone responded with fervent enthusiasm, especially those at the spirit-severing stage and out-of-body stage. They naturally knew that they were not qualified to snatch Murong Yu's spiritual weapon, but if everyone could get 100,000 yuan recovery pills, they would make a lot of money. The disciples of Yuan Su sect all looked gloomy and murderous as they stared at the crowd, especially Fei Mingzhong. His face was gloomy and murderous. Are you sure you want our Yuan Su sect's recovery pills? Fei Mingzhong's voice was low and endless murderous intent spread out from his body. At this time, Fei Mingzhong was very angry and murderous. We don't need the recovery pills. We only need one thing from Murong Yu. Anyway, you're only looking for him. You can give his things to us. In this way, we will leave here. A severed soul stage master said, Are you threatening me? Fei Mingzhong stepped forward and looked at the severed soul stage master with murderous intent. Powerful murderous intent swept out like a stormy sea. The severed soul stage expert was the first to bear the brunt. He was like a lone boat in a raging sea. He was almost torn apart by the terrifying killing intent. Puff! The severed soul stage master spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying. The severed soul stage and the form synthesis stage were only one stage apart. However, a form synthesis stage master could injure a severed soul stage master with just his aura. The difference in strength was obvious. Fei Mingzhong, what do you mean by this? The other severed soul experts took a step forward and glared at Fei Mingzhong coldly. Fei Mingzhong snorted. Murongyu is a wanted criminal of Yuan Su sect. Even his things belong to Yuan Su sect. If anyone dares to interfere in this matter today, they will be against Yuan Su sect. If anyone doesn't leave, don't blame me for being ruthless. A threat. Fei Mingzhong's killing intent had already been aroused, and he was about to start a massacre. The reason why he didn't make a move was that although Yuan Su sect was one of the top 10 sects, it would have a bad impact on his sect if he casually killed people from other sections. Ha, bunch of idiots. Do you really think you can defeat me, Murongyu? At this moment, a burst of laughter came from the ground. Then, the ground cracked, and a figure soared into the sky with mud flying swords. Huh. Everyone was surprised, and Fei Mingzhong was even more surprised. Just now, even a spirit-severing stage expert would be seriously injured by his palm. Murongyu was directly knocked out by him, but at this time, Murongyu seemed to be fine. With a cold snort, Fei Mingzhong stretched out his big hand, shattered the void, and directly grabbed Murongyu. You all want my spiritual weapon? And your Yuan Su sect wants to kill me to avenge Sun Yuan? A bunch of idiots. You all have to die today. Murongyu's arrogant voice spread far and wide, courting death. Fei Mingzhong shouted, and his big hand was already grabbing. However, just when he was about to grab Murongyu, Murongyu disappeared into thin air. Murongyu wasn't knocked out. It turned out that he had been awake all along. This was undoubtedly a huge irony for Fei Mingzhong and the others. Seeing this scene, everyone was shocked. Just like Fei Mingzhong, they'd originally thought that Murongyu had been sealed by Fei Mingzhong since he hadn't made a sound for so long. However, this was not the case. When they saw Murongyu disappear into thin air, coupled with the words that Murongyu had said earlier, they had a bad feeling in their hearts. At this moment, someone even found a deep pit. Under the ground, the severed soul stage young man who was originally protecting Murongyu disappeared into thin air. Just like Murongyu, he disappeared into thin air in front of everyone. At this moment, the bad feeling in everyone's heart was getting stronger and stronger. Go, let's get out of here quickly. That feeling of unease grew stronger and stronger, especially for those who were stronger than them. With a thought, many powerhouses were about to leave this place. However, just as they were about to leave, Murongyu's voice came from afar. You want to leave here? It's too late. Today, none of you can escape. All of you are going to die. His voice was cold and contained supreme, killing intent. When the crowd heard this, they felt their hair stand on end. Boom! At this moment, there was a violent explosion under the ground, followed by a sword light that soared into the sky, instantly sealing the ground and void within a radius of 5 miles. An extremely great sense of danger surged over. At that moment, everyone could only see billions of sword lights of different sizes, but they all contained terrifying killing intent. They tore through space and shot over in a devastating manner. Immediately, those cultivators in the integration stage, heartbeat stage, and even the out-of-body stage could not withstand the killing of the hundreds of millions of sword lights. In an instant, hundreds of people were killed or injured. All the low-level cultivators were killed. Ambush. Murongyu set up an ambush here. Seeing this scene, everyone finally knew where the bad feeling in their hearts came from. The sky shook and the earth shook. The sky was covered and the sun was dimmed. The terrifying killing intent enveloped everything within a radius of 5 miles, isolating them from the outside world. As screams sounded continuously, the low-level cultivators were killed one after another. In an instant, blood flowed like a river, turning this place into a slaughterhouse. Charge out! Everyone's bodies flickered with light, and the shadows of coiling dragons and horned dragons hovered in the void, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. It was an extremely ferocious and spectacular sight. One by one, they increased their strength to the maximum, increased their speed, opened their shields, and quickly rushed out of the formation. Since this was a formation, as long as they rushed out of the formation would naturally not be able to do anything to them. That was what they thought. However, Was it really so easy to break out of this formation? With the bow of heaven and earth as the formation core, how could it be so easy to break out of the immortal jutting formation set up by 99 spiritual weapon grade flying swords? Even if a half-immortal powerhouse came, it would be able to severely injure him. If not for my lack of strength, even a golden immortal could be easily killed. In the Hichu Luoshu world, Hichu looked disdainfully at the cultivators who were rampaging outside, trying to break out of the immortal jutting formation. He sneered in his heart. Murong, who was beside him, felt a little pained. This so-called Jueshin Grand Array was set up using a total of 99 Spirit Tool grade flying swords. Among them, there was no lack of 9th grade spiritual weapons. Flying swords of that grade were infinitely close to immortal weapons. In the cultivation world, they were priceless treasures. Hichu, after the formation is removed, will these flying swords really be fine? Murong did not know how many times he had asked this question. It was obvious that his heart was extremely pained. I can tell you with certainty that these flying swords will not be damaged at all, Hichu said impatiently. Chapter 92. In the Ju Immortal Great Array, flesh and blood flew everywhere. The scene was very tragic. Originally, there were close to 1,000 people, but now there were only 400 or 500 people. The fusion stage, heartbeat stage, and silent spirit stage cultivators had been killed. Even the out-of-body stage disciples began to die in large numbers. However, the dozen or so severed soul stage powerhouses and Fei Mingzhong, who was at the body integration stage, were unharmed. One by one, their bodies bloomed with light, and a powerful force firmly protected them inside. Countless sword lights rushed over. If they weren't killed, they wouldn't be able to break through their power and injure them. If this continued, sooner or later, they would be able to break out of the Great Array. At that time, it would be impossible for Murong to kill them. Unless, of course, his strength was as strong as theirs. Seeing this scene, Hichu sighed regretfully and said, "You're not strong enough. You can't even kill a spirit-severing stage cultivator. What should we do? Are we going to let them leave? This is a rare opportunity," Murong said with a gloomy face. These days, during the day, Murong swaggered through the streets of ancient Spring City, causing trouble and trying to attract the attention of those who had ideas about him. Even the news of him having a spirit weapon was spread by him, in order to attract more people to come and snatch it. At night, Murong used his relationship with the Hichu Luoshu world to quietly leave ancient Spring City and spend a few nights setting up the Ju Immortal Great Array here. The Ju Immortal Great Array could even kill immortals, let alone these low-level cultivators in the cultivation world. However, limited by the strength of Hichu, even if the Chinquin Bao was used as the eye of the array, the power was not strong enough. In a short time, it was difficult to kill a spirit-severing stage cultivator. Killing all these people was the motivation for Murong to set up the Ju Immortal Great Array for many days. Especially those spirit-severing stage and body integration stage cultivators. Murong absolutely had to kill them. After all, he was not one of those people who could be trampled on. Since they targeted him, then let them exchange their lives for it. Furthermore, if he could really kill these severed soul stage and body integration stage cultivators, he would be able to kill them. In that case, Murong would definitely shock the world of self-cultivators and give Yuan Su sect a tight slap in the face. Hichu's eyes flashed with a hint of ruthlessness. Today, none of them will be able to escape. Especially that Fei Mingzhong. How could I let him leave after injuring me? I can only use the method of burning medicinal pills to increase the power of the array formation. Hichu was once injured by Fei Mingzhong. It was obvious that he was the young man who had brought Murong out of the ancient Spring City. Looking at Hichu, Murong suddenly laughed. "Hichu, there's no need to burn your pills. I have a way to make them all die here." As he spoke, Murong took off his purple ribbon immortal robe and put on the 8 trigrams immortal robe. Then, with a flash of his body, he disappeared from the Hichu Luoshu world. The 8 trigrams Immortal Robe was an immortal-level defensive treasure robe. Unlike the purple ribbon Immortal Robe, the 8 trigrams Immortal Robe not only had strong defensive power, but also had the ability to hide. After putting on the 8 trigrams Immortal Robe, Morongyu activated the invisibility function and disappeared from the Hichu Luoshu world. At this moment, the jutting immortal formation was filled with sword gleams. Billions of sword gleams wreaked havoc. Even a void seemed to have been torn apart. No matter where one was, one would be indiscriminately attacked by the endless sword gleams. Under the terrifying attacks, the number of cultivators in the jutting immortal formation was rapidly decreasing. Not long after, the original 1,000 cultivators had been reduced to 1 or 200. These were the strongest cultivators trapped in the formation. These people raised their strength to the maximum and used all the various abilities they had. They attacked the jutting immortal formation with all their might, wanting to shatter the formation and escape this hell on earth. With the Hichu Luoshu on his head and the 8 trigrams Immortal Robe on his body, Morongyu charged into the crowd with a 9th-grade spirit weapon, flying sword in his hand. Boom! Amidst the endless sword gleams, a black sword gleam suddenly exploded. With extreme speed, it fiercely slashed an out-of-body cultivator who was resisting the attacks of the jutting immortal formation with all his might. The out-of-body cultivator was focused on dodging the endless sword gleams of the jutting immortal formation and did not notice Murongyu's sneak attack at all. He was actually sent flying by Murongyu's sword gleam. However, the difference in strength between the two was really too great. Morongyu was only in the revolving reflection stage. Even if he attacked with all his might, he would not be able to do anything to an out-of-body cultivator who was 4 realms lower than him. However, even though Morongyu couldn't injure him, he was still able to send him flying away with his blood and chi churning. This was the jutting immortal formation. The sword gleams that were everywhere in the formation instantly attacked. In an instant, thousands of sword gleams bombarded the out-of-body cultivator's body. After a scream, the out-of-body cultivator was immediately ground into minced meat. It's Morongyu. One of the out-of-body cultivators who saw this scene nearby cried out in alarm. Then he slashed his sword down at the space where Morongyu was. Boom! The earth split apart, but there was no trace of Morongyu. Morongyu is not dead yet. He's secretly attacking. At this time, the remaining cultivators had gradually gathered together in 2s and 3s to resist the jutting immortal formation's killing blow. Morongyu! Fei Mingzhong roared in shock and anger. He stretched out a large hand and slammed it down. However, Morongyu had long since left. Fei Mingzhong's attack didn't even manage to touch his clothes. Boom! Morongyu valiantly attacked again, sending an out-of-body cultivator flying. However, those people had already secretly raised their vigilance. The instant Morongyu made his move, the dozens of out-of-body stage cultivators in the vicinity roared at the same time. They erupted with their strongest power, condensing it into a torrential wave of power that blasted towards Morongyu. Morongyu was shocked. He hurriedly entered the Hichu Luoshu to avoid their attack. Otherwise, even if he had the protection of the 8 trigrams Immortal Robe, he would probably be killed directly. In the Hichu Luoshu world, Morongyu was covered in dust and looked very miserable. Your strength is still too low. Hichu walked over and said. Morongyu nodded. If his strength increased by another 2 or 3 realms, then with the help of the jutting immortal formation, he was confident that he could kill Fei Mingzhong, who was at the body integration stage. But now, boom! All of a sudden, an extremely terrifying tremor erupted from the formation. The terrifying impact caused the entire jutting immortal formation to tremble. The heaven and earth shook, and the earth cracked. Hichu's expression changed. Oh no, they've joined forces to break the formation. At this time, more than 100 cultivators had joined forces behind the jutting immortal formation. Under the leadership of Fei Mingzhong and a dozen severed soul stage experts, they attacked the jutting immortal formation together, trying to break the formation. Can they break the jutting immortal formation? Murong Yu's eyes flashed as he asked. Absolutely not. This is the jutting immortal formation. Although it's not very powerful, it's not easy for them to break it. However, because the jutting immortal formation is not powerful enough, it's difficult for them to kill those severed soul stage and body integration stage, Fei Mingzhong. Most importantly, it's been a long time since we've met. Once more people from ancient Spring City come, they might be able to break the jutting immortal formation. After all, when Murong Yu left ancient Spring City, he attracted the attention of many people. The more than 1,000 people in the jutting immortal formation were only there to trap those who arrived first. Looking outside through the array, Murong, you could already see quite a few cultivators. Some cultivators were ready to attack the jutting immortal formation. Since that's the case, there's no need to wait any longer. Let's kill them all. Murong used killing intent sword. What's your plan? Hichu asked. Murong Yu sneered. Send us in front of them first. I want to give them a big gift. Hichu didn't ask anymore. He immediately controlled Hichu Luoshu to turn into a speck of dust and flew to the void in front of Fei Mingzhong and the others. Streaks of terrifying power passed through the void under the He-Tu and Luoshu and bombarded the grand formation behind them. At this time, the jutting immortal formation was shaking more and more violently. It seemed like it would break at any time. Murong used killing intent sword, as he said. Release the golden corpse from the cave in the Demon Mountain's forbidden area. Hichu's heart jumped. You're too ruthless, kid, but I like it. Then, Hichu excitedly threw the golden corpse out of Hichu Luoshu world. Hurry up and run away. Murong Yu shouted the moment the golden corpse disappeared from Hichu Luoshu. Hichu's reaction was faster than Murong Yu's. He immediately ran far away and even rushed out of the jutting immortal formation. Shua! The golden corpse appeared out of thin air. At this time, Fei Mingzhong and the others launched a new round of attacks. Like a raging wave, the power bombarded the golden corpse. Boom! When Murong Yu approached the golden corpse, he was almost ground to dust by the terrifying killing intent overflowing from the golden corpse. At this time, the combined power of hundreds of high-level cultivators bombarded the golden corpse after being attacked. The golden corpse suddenly exploded with a golden light that soared into the sky. The golden light was like the sun, and it was as fast as the ocean. In an instant, it covered a radius of dozens of miles and even extended further. An incomparably terrifying killing intent burst out in an instant. Pooh! The first to bear the brunt of the attack were the hundreds of cultivators. Under the extremely terrifying impact of the golden light, they didn't even have time to panic before they were ground into a mist of blood. Fei Mingzhong, who was at the body integration stage, didn't even have time to groan before he was killed. It was to the extent that everything within a radius of tens of kilometers was razed to the ground by this golden light. The golden light was even more intense than the sun in the sky. Moreover, it contained a terrifying killing intent that could destroy everything. Dazzling golden light burst out from the golden corpse and instantly covered a radius of dozens of miles like an ocean. Chapter 93. Chi-Chi, with the golden corpse as the center. Everything within a radius of dozens of miles was crushed into powder by the killing intent that erupted from the golden corpse. 100 cultivators disappeared and were crushed into minced meat. Even the immortal jutting formation that Hichu set up with 99 flying swords and the bow of heaven and earth was shattered. The mountains within a radius of dozens of miles disappeared and were razed to the ground. All the cultivators disappeared. After a long time, the golden light dissipated. However, the golden corpse fell to the ground quietly. It emitted a faint golden light. Other than that, there was also a shiny golden bow near the golden corpse. It was the bow of heaven and earth. Suddenly, a figure appeared out of thin air dozens of miles away and stood in the void. It was Murong Yu. He stared blankly at the raised ground in front of him with a shocked expression. Suddenly, Murong Yu let out a cry of surprise. His voice was very miserable. "My flying swords!" Murong Yu screamed with a pained expression. Because the immortal jutting formation had been destroyed by the golden corpse's terrifying killing intent. The 99 flying swords that were part of the formation were also shattered into pieces. A 9th-grade flying sword was a priceless treasure in the cultivation world, and Hichu had used several 9th-grade flying swords to set up the immortal jutting formation. There were even more of other grades of spiritual weapons. In this way, Murong Yu had paid an extremely high price. No wonder he screamed so miserably. However, Murong Yu managed to kill a Unity body cultivator and several severed soul experts from the Origin Void sect in this battle. It could be said that Murong Yu had profited. Murong Yu put away the golden corpse and the bow of heaven and earth as quickly as possible and then fled into the distance. He didn't want to stay in ancient Spring City any longer. Once the Origin Void sect knew that Murong Yu had killed their combination body experts, they would attack him even if they were in ancient Spring City. Ancient Spring City was no longer safe. After Murong Yu left, several figures appeared not far away. Then, more people rushed over. All of them stared blankly at the ground that they thought was flat. Furthermore, there were people that had been watching this scene from afar the entire time. A powerhouse at the form synthesis stage and a dozen powerhouses at the severed soul stage were killed by Murong Yu's formation. Over 1,000 cultivators had been killed by Murong Yu's formation. It was as if the news had grown wings and spread throughout the world of cultivators at the fastest speed. For a moment, the whole cultivation world was shocked by what Murong Yu had done. After the battle, Murong Yu's ferocious might shook the cultivation world. With his early revolving reflection stage cultivation, he had killed thousands of powerful cultivators. Among them, there was no lack of severed soul stage and body fusion stage experts. Murong Yu's methods and brutality shocked the world. It was also after this battle that Murong Yu's ferocious might began to spread in the cultivation world. When the news of Murong Yu's ferocious might spread, the major sects in the cultivation world, especially those whose disciples had been killed by Murong Yu, were furious. They began to search for Murong Yu all over the world. Origin Void sect. In the main hall, Sun Pingxi and the elders of the Origin Void sect gathered gloomily. The atmosphere was oppressive and murderous. This is truly a great humiliation. A puny cultivator at the revolving reflection stage actually killed a combination body cultivator. What a bunch of good-for-nothings. An elder said with murderous intent. When the news of Fei Mingzhong and the others being killed by Murong Yu came out, they were not shocked by Fei Mingzhong's death. After all, although it took a lot of resources to cultivate a combination body cultivator. However, for these sects, there were still many combination body fusion experts. What made them furious was that Murong Yu did not kill the combination body fusion Fei Mingzhong, but their face. There was a difference of 7 realms. An ant-like cultivator actually killed a combination body fusion cultivator. When this news spread out, everyone was shocked by Murong Yu's ferociousness and strength, and they also laughed at the Origin Void sect, being killed by a cultivator 7 realms lower than him. This was not only Fei Mingzhong's disgrace. It was also a disgrace to the Origin Void sect. Hey, did you know? Now, there's a person called Murong Yu, a revolving reflection cultivator, who killed a combination body cultivator from the Origin Void sect. This Murong Yu is really too strong. Murong Yu is just a revolving reflection cultivator. How strong can he be? If you ask me, those disciples of the Origin Void sect are too trashy. That was a combination body fusion cultivator, and he was killed just like that. What a good-for-nothing. I think the Origin Void sect has an undeserved reputation. A combination body fusion cultivator can't even withstand a single blow. I think the other cultivators are also not much. Saying that they're one of the top 10 sects, what a joke. I didn't think that the people from the Origin Void sect would be so trashy. If I was a disciple of the Origin Void sect, I wouldn't have the face to walk outside. In the cultivation world, everyone was talking about this matter, and all of them praised Murong Yu's strength. But they also said that the Origin Void sect was worthless and that they couldn't even compare to those third-rate sections. In fact, many of the disciples of Yuan Su's sect who were training outside did not even dare to appear in crowded places because of the other disciples' words. All of them were ashamed. Even in the Origin Void sect, when the disciples talked about this matter, they also felt ashamed. They felt that Fei Mingzhong had shamed their entire sect. Because of this, Sun Pingxi and the others were very angry. The top 10 sects are still the top 10 sections. Fei Mingzhong may have been killed by Murong Yu's tricks, but as long as we capture that Murong Yu, we will be able to wash away our shame. A tribulation elder said coldly, "This brat is full of tricks and has such a trick up his sleeve. It's impossible to guard against him." Sun Pingxi's eyes flashed with murderous intent. However, the stronger Murong Yu was, the happier he was. After all, Murong Yu's strength was due to his cultivation technique and the magical treasures he had on him. As long as they could take down Murong Yu, then Murong Yu's treasures would naturally belong to someone else. Even with Murong Yu's current cultivation, it was already so powerful. What if it was used on them? When the time comes, the Origin Void sect would rise up and become the leader of the top 10 sections. Not long after, tribulation elders from the Origin Void sect went down the mountain to pursue Murong Yu. Just like the Origin Void sect, there were other sects whose disciples were killed by Murong Yu. They all sent their experts to pursue Murong Yu, vowing to capture Murong Yu. Murong Yu is Zhu Xinzong's disciple. He joined Zhu Xinzong 2 years ago and is now an outer disciple of Zhu Xinzong. Just as Murong Yu's ferocity spread throughout the cultivation world and all the sects vowed to find him, a piece of news about Murong Yu's identity spread. Murong Yu is Zhu Xinzong's disciple. When they heard this news, they were first shocked and then in disbelief. How could Murong Yu be Zhu Xinzong's disciple? Like the Origin Void sect, Zhu Xinzong was one of the top 10 sects in the cultivation world. Now, the disciples of both sects were fighting to the death. Furthermore, Murong Yu even killed a body integration stage disciple of the Origin Void sect and many spirit severing stage cultivators. How is that possible? Didn't the top 10 sects get along peacefully and have a good relationship? Many people did not believe that Murong Yu was Zhu Xinzong's disciple. After all, the top 10 sects had a good relationship with each other, and such a thing would never happen. However, the good relationship between the top 10 sects was only what it looked like on the surface. In reality, which sect did not want to suppress the other sects? Among them, the secret dealings of the top sects were not known to the public. It was definitely not uncommon for them to kill the disciples of other sections. However, such situations usually happened in secret. It was extremely rare for Murong Yu to kill the disciples of other sects openly. Murong Yu is indeed Zhu Xinzong's disciple. Just after this news came out, many disciples of Zhu Xinzong came out and confirmed the identity of Murong Yu. After all, although Murong Yu was only an outer disciple, he had a little reputation in the sect before. Although Murong Yu did not come back after the Demon Mountain trial last year. At that time, they all thought that Murong Yu had died on the Demon Mountain, but no one thought that he not only did not die, but also made such a sensational thing in the cultivation world. Murong Yu's identity was confirmed, and those small sects and various rogue cultivators who wanted to kill him retreated. If Murong Yu was just a disciple of a small sect or a rogue cultivator, these people did not have to worry at all. However, now that Murong Yu was Zhu Xinzong's disciple, who would dare to touch Zhu Xinzong's disciple? Therefore, after Murong Yu's identity was confirmed, those who wanted to kill Murong Yu immediately disappeared. At least on the surface. Yuan Su's sect, main hall. Sun Pingxi and the group gathered together again. Murong Yu is Zhu Xinzong's disciple. I'm afraid that he has already returned to Zhu Xinzong. What should we do? An elder said with a gloomy face. It's better to go back to Zhu Xinzong. We can go directly to ask for him. I don't think Zhu Xinzong will fall out with us over a small, revolving reflection cultivator. An elder said with a sneer, murderous intent overflowing. Sun Pingxi's eyes narrowed. Many of the elders present may not know how terrifying Murong Yu was. He knew that Murong Yu's cultivation methods and magic weapons must be top-notch. If Zhushenzong knew about this, then even if Zhushenzong fell out with Yuan Su's sect, he would still protect Murong Yu. Then, if they wanted to get Murong Yu's cultivation methods, they would have to capture Murong Yu before Zhushenzong found out. Of course, if Zhushenzong knew about Murong Yu's cultivation methods, they would not be able to get those cultivation methods from Murong Yu. However, even if that was the case, Sun Pingxi had an excuse to make Zhushenzong pay the price. After all, his grandson Sun Yuan was killed by Murong Yu. Chapter 94. Immediately go to Zhushenzong and ask for him. Sun Ping, she said decisively. Zhushenzong. In the main hall, the sect master of Zhushenzong, a half-immortal level existence, Zhuang Ningguang, and a group of elders of Zhushenzong were gathered in the main hall. Is that Murong Yu really a disciple of Zhushenzong? After Zhuang Ningguang heard about Murong Yu's deeds, he immediately rushed back to the sect to confirm Murong Yu's identity. Murong Yu is indeed our disciple. 2 years ago, he joined the sect from the Immortal Cultivation Assembly. However, he didn't come back after the Devil Mountain trial last year. An elder of the Chor Pavilion stepped forward and reported Murong Yu's information. How could a trivial revolving reflection stage cultivator kill a body integration stage cultivator? Who taught him his cultivation methods, magic weapons, and the formation that day? Zhuang Ningguang asked in a deep voice. When Murong Yu left the sect for the Devil Mountain trial, he was only a foundation establishment stage cultivator. With his status, he could only cultivate Zhushenzong's most basic cultivation methods. It was impossible for him to have such formidable power. It was even more impossible for him to kill a body integration stage cultivator. Maybe he had a fortuitous encounter in the Devil Mountain. Many of the elders were senior disciples of Zhushenzong, so they were naturally very familiar with the sect's cultivation methods. After Zhuang Ningguang asked, they immediately thought that Murong Yu might have had a fortuitous encounter in the Devil Mountain. His cultivation method and knowledge of array formations. He might even have obtained a lot of treasures. These should have all been obtained in the Devil Mountain. An elder speculated. Hearing this, many of the elders in the main hall had different expressions. Some showed surprise, and some showed a trace of greed. If Murong Yu really had a fortuitous encounter, then, as a disciple of Zhushenzong, everything he obtained must be handed over to the sect. He killed a body integration stage cultivator in the revolving reflection stage. If our Zhushenzong obtains these cultivation methods, I believe that in the future, our Zhushenzong will certainly become the leader of the 10 great sections. Zhuang Ningguang nodded and said, but now that the Yuan Su sect is chasing Murong Yu, we must find him before they find Murong Yu and bring him back to the sect. I believe that many people are now coveting Murong Yu's things. The elders nodded. After a long discussion, they decided to send a few elders to search for Murong Yu. Who was Murong, who seemed to have evaporated from the face of the earth, but now he seemed to have returned. Murong Yu was 4, and 4s was 4. The phantom gradually drew closer. It turned out to be a young man flying on a spear. It was Murong Yu. After leaving the ancient spring city, Murong Yu had been hurrying all the way. Today, he finally returned to Zhushenzong. The moment he entered Zhushenzong, Murong Yu unconsciously breathed a sigh of relief. On the way, Murong Yu was vigilant at all times. Only when he returned to the sect did he relax, because in the sect he was safe. But in reality, was the sect really safe? Murong Yu didn't know that when he stepped into Zhushenzong again, he entered an even greater danger. Murong Yu rode on his flying sword and flew back to his original residence. However, he didn't know that as soon as he returned to the sect, several elders of the Yuan Su sect came to Zhushenzong. It's just that they went in different directions. Yuan Su sect's elders went straight to Zhushenzong's conference hall, while Murong Yu had already returned to the outer court disciples' mountain peak. Huh, isn't that Murong Yu? When did he come back? Ah, he's Murong Yu? Was it the revolving radiant stage cultivator who had killed a body integration stage cultivator? Is he really that strong? It's indeed Murong Yu. I've seen the wanted poster from the Yuan Su sect. Although it's a bit blurry, it should be Murong Yu. Moreover, in the entire cultivation world, he should be the only one who has this black spear all day long. In fact, when Murong Yu had just returned to the sect, the disciples in the sect had already noticed him. After all, in the cultivation world, only Murong Yu could fly on a spear, and so elegantly. Senior brother Murong Yu, junior brother Murong Yu. Along the way, whenever they met Zushinzong's disciples, these people would greet Murong Yu. But Murong Yu just nodded at them with a smile on his face, looking like a leader inspecting their work. In fact, Murong Yu was a little depressed in his heart. He didn't even think that he would be so famous in the cultivation world. It's not that being famous in the cultivation world was bad, but now, Murong Yu was a little surprised. Landing in the original courtyard, Murong Yu came to the front of the room that originally belonged to him. When he was about to push the door open, he didn't expect the door to open from the inside, and then a figure came out from inside. And there's someone in this room? Isn't it his own? Murong Yu's face suddenly became gloomy, looking at the young man who pushed the door open, a Xiantian realm cultivator. Ah, senior brother, what are you doing here? Seeing the gloomy Murong Yu in front of his room, Duanbin looked at him with some surprise and said, Duanbin was a disciple who entered Zushinzong this year. Although this room was Murong Yu's, the sect already thought that Murong Yu had died in the Demon Mountain trial, so his room was arranged for Duanbin. This was a normal arrangement, and Duanbin was not a dove occupying a magpie's nest. Hearing Duanbin's words, Murong Yu suddenly smiled, and then he patted Duanbin's shoulder and said, Work hard, and in the future, it's not impossible to become an immortal. After saying this sentence, which confused Duanbin, Murong Yu turned and left the courtyard, flying in the direction of the cafeteria. Senior brother Murong Yu, boss. Just as Murong Yu was about to leave the courtyard, a sword light flew from the distance. Then it arrived in front of Murong Yu. Boss, you're finally back. Wu Feng looked at Murong Yu with a face full of excitement and laughed. Wu Feng, not bad. I haven't seen you for more than a year, and you've already broken through to the foundation establishment stage. Not bad. Murong Yu patted Wu Feng's shoulder, making Wu Feng grimace. Wu Feng scratched the back of his head and said, How can I compare to you, boss? You killed a body fusion cultivator. Who in the cultivation world doesn't know how strong you are? Smooth talker. Murong Yu stared at Wu Feng, and then he put his hand in his storage bag and said, Give me your storage bag. Wu Feng didn't understand, but he didn't hesitate to give his storage bag to Murong Yu. Murong Yu took Wu Feng's interspatial pouch, took out 10,000 origin recovery pills from his own interspatial pouch, and placed them in Wu Feng's interspatial pouch. Then he handed it back to Wu Feng. You've finally broken through to the foundation establishment stage. In the future, you'll need a lot of yuan recovery pills. Here are 10,000 yuan recovery pills. It'll be enough for you to use for a while. Boss, how can this be? Wu Feng didn't take the storage bag, and only looked at Murong Yu with a face full of shock. 10,000 yuan recovery pills. To Wu Feng, this was definitely an astronomical number. This was because outer sect disciples like them could only receive 5 energy recovery pills a month from the sect. In a year, they could only get 60. Now, Murong Yu gave him 10,000 yuan recovery pills without batting an eye. Wu Feng's heart was moved, but at the same time, he was indescribably grateful. He didn't dare to accept Murong Yu's kindness. Murong Yu's face sank, and he looked at Wu Feng and said in a deep voice, Since you call me boss, I naturally won't treat you unfairly. As he spoke, he patted the storage bag tied to his waist. I have plenty of pills here. If you're not at the foundation establishment stage, then I can give you even more. If you still recognize me as your boss, then accept it. Otherwise, you're not treating me as your boss. Wu Feng took the storage bag with trembling hands, and he solemnly tied it to his waist. Then, with a serious face, he said to Murong Yu, Boss, I won't say any words of gratitude. In the future, if you need me, I'll climb a mountain of swords or dive into a sea of fire without frowning. Murong faintly smiled. Okay, let's not say these words. I haven't been back to the sect for a long time, and I'm starting to miss the food in the cafeteria. Come, let's go to the cafeteria. As he spoke, he put his arm around Wu Feng's shoulder and walked towards the cafeteria. However, when Murong walked to the entrance of the courtyard, he stopped. He looked at Duan Bin, who was looking at him with a sluggish expression, and threw out 100 yuan recovery pills, saying, "Since you're living in my previous room, then you and I are fated. Take these 100 yuan recovery pills as a gift from me." Duan Bin took the yuan recovery pills and still looked at Murong back with a sluggish expression. It wasn't until Murong and Wu Feng disappeared from his line of sight that he woke up. "That's Senior Murong. I'm living in his previous room. He actually gave me 100 yuan recovery pills." Duan Bin was full of excitement. "With these 100 yuan recovery pills, I'll be able to break through to the foundation establishment stage soon." Duan Bin was full of joy, and he rushed into the room and began to cultivate. Murong. When Murong and Wu Feng appeared in the cafeteria, a voice came from the corner. Murong turned his head and saw that the person who called him was Murong Yin, and beside her was Murong Ling. After not seeing each other for more than a year, these two were already foundation establishment stage cultivators. Their uncle, Wei Han, was a core disciple of Zushenzong, so it was not difficult to get some resources for them. However, what made Murong a little unhappy was that Murong Ling was still looking at him with such resentment. Although he felt Murong Ling's hostility towards him, Murong just looked at him indifferently and then left with Wu Feng. Now, he and Murong Ling were not on the same level. Although Murong Ling was already a foundation establishment stage cultivator and was not much different from Murong. However, in the past year, how many things had Murong experienced? He had even seen a half-immortal level master, and he had even killed Yuan Su Sect's Unity stage cultivator. Chapter 95. Murong already had the same look in his eyes as those powerful cultivators in the cultivation world. He was already above these low-level cultivators. Even if Murong wasn't included, he had already raised his standards infinitely. In terms of strength, Murong Ling was no longer a threat to Murong. Even Wei Han, Murong Ling's uncle and a core disciple of Zushenzong, who was in the spirit silent stage. At this moment, Murong also didn't take him seriously. This was the mentality of a powerful cultivator. Therefore, even if Murong Ling hated and wanted to kill him, so what? An ant would always be an ant. Why would an elephant care about an ant's attitude towards him? Murong Ling and Murong Yin, however, looked at Murong with complicated expressions. Now, they were no longer on the same level. However, even so, Murong Ling's hatred towards Murong would not disappear. It would only become stronger as time passed, and the gap between them would become wider and wider. Let's not talk about what happened to Murong in the canteen. At this moment, in the main hall of Zushenzong, your Yuanshu school put out a warrant for my disciple of Zushenzong for no reason. We haven't had time to settle the score with you yet. How dare you come here to take him away? How dare you? Looking at several elders of the Yuanshu school, Zhuang Ningguang, the leader of Zushenzong, was immediately furious. He almost wanted to kill Gu Ning and others. The Yuanshu school did this because they didn't take Zushenzong seriously at all. Even if Zhuang Ningguang and others didn't find out Murong secret, they would never allow the Yuanshu school to take Murong away. After all, once Murong was taken away by them, it meant that Zushenzong couldn't stand the pressure of the Yuanshu school and was inferior to others. This way, the outside world would think that Zushenzong was inferior to Yuansu sect. Zushenzong, of course, wouldn't admit that he wasn't as powerful as the Yuanshu sect. Therefore, when Gu Ning and the others revealed their purpose of coming here, they were criticized by Zhuang Ningguang. Go back and tell Sun Pingxi that his grandson died in the Demon Mountain trial. Everyone was well aware of this, so there was no need to talk about it openly. If he really wants to make a fuss about it, the Void Skies sect will naturally settle some old scores with him. I won't be seeing you off." Gu Ning and the others looked at each other in embarrassment. In the end, he left Zhushenzong speechlessly. They didn't dare to be impudent here. They have a good plan. If we hand over Murong Yu, not only will our Zhushenzong lose face, but Murong Yu's belongings will also be taken away by them. An elder said in a gloomy voice. Right at this moment, a disciple walked in and reported that Murong Yu had returned to the sect. Zhuang Ningguang and the others were overjoyed and immediately sent someone to invite Murong Yu over. At this moment, Murong Yu and Wu Feng had just left the canteen after a big meal. They saw a figure flying towards them from afar. It was at least a disciple in the out-of-body stage. Seeing that figure, many outer disciples were a little surprised. Usually, only outer disciples came in and out of this place. When did such a powerful person appear here? It's Elder Lin. Suddenly, someone exclaimed. Murong Yu looked over and found that Elder Lin was the elder who led the team when he participated in the Demon Mountain trial last year. His name seemed to be Lin Jilong. Lin Jilong scanned with his divine mind and soon found Murong Yu. Then he directly landed in front of Murong Yu and Wu Feng. Murong Yu, the sect leader invites you to come with me. Lin Jilong looked at Murong Yu with a slightly surprised look and said in a deep voice. Although he was sent to invite Murong Yu, he was a cultivator in the form synthesis stage and an elder of the sect. Naturally, his attitude was a little arrogant. This is Murong Yu who killed a cultivator in the form synthesis stage. Lin Jilong was more and more surprised as he looked at Murong Yu. However, no matter how he looked, he couldn't find anything special about Murong Yu. The sect leader invites me to go over? Elder Lin, did I hear wrong? Murong Yu said with a little surprise. Lin Jilong smiled, and his attitude became a lot better. Yes, someone from the Yuan Su sect just came. Since you have nothing to do, come with me. People from Yuan Su sect came? Murong Yu sneered in his heart. He had guessed the sect's intention. Since that's the case, I'll go over. Wu Feng, you go back first. I'll find you later. As he spoke, the long spear on his back popped out. He then jumped on the spear and flew into the depths of the sect. The sect leader invites Murong Yu to go over. Wu Feng and the nearby outer sect disciples didn't react until Murong Yu and Wu Feng had disappeared from sight. For outer sect disciples like them, let alone being invited by the sect master, they had never even seen what the sect master looked like. Even the elders of the sect were rarely seen. On the other hand, Murong Yu was invited by the sect master. Furthermore, it was an elder who personally came to invite him over. Murong Yu's reputation was too great. At this moment, they all knew that Murong Yu would most likely become a core disciple of the sect and receive great nurturing from the sect. He might even be able to become the disciple of a powerful elder. Junior brother Wu Feng, are you going back to the courtyard? I'm going back too. Why don't we go together? Senior brother Wu Feng, I'll treat you next time. After sensing the change in Murong Yu's status, some outer sect disciples began to curry favor with Wu Feng, who was very close to Murong Yu, in order to build a relationship with Murong Yu. For a moment, Wu Feng was at a loss. In the main hall, there were more than a dozen elders in addition to the sect leader, Zhuang Ningguang. Except for Elder Feng Ningbo, Murong Yu didn't know any of them. The moment Murong Yu entered, more than a dozen pairs of eyes with different meanings instantly shot over, constantly scanning Murong Yu's body as if they wanted to see through everything about Murong Yu. Murong Yu didn't have stage fright. After calmly bowing, he stood in place and didn't speak. Murong Yu, since you're a disciple of Zhushenzong, you should naturally understand the rules of Zhushenzong. If a disciple outside has an opportunity, he will hand over the cultivation method and other things he obtained to the sect. Since you killed an elder of Yuan Su sect who was at the combination stage, it means that you had a fortuitous encounter in the Demon Mountain. You should know very well what to do. The sect leader didn't speak, but Feng Ningbo spoke first. Murong Yu's eyes narrowed slightly, but he sneered in his heart. What kind of bullsh asterisk T rule is this? Of course, what he obtained was his own. What did it have to do with the sect? However, he didn't speak. He wanted to see what these people were up to. Murong Yu, This is not only the rule of Zhushenzong, but also the rule of other sections. Only in this way can we maintain the cultivation method and magic weapon of our sect. Only in this way can we ensure that our sect will grow stronger and not decline. Seeing that Murongyu didn't speak, Elder Lin Jilong, who led him here, said. Murongyu sneered in his heart. What did he get? Ichu Luoshu? Army formula? Vow of heaven and earth? Even the worst one was the 8 trigrams immortal robe. However, the 8 trigrams immortal robe was also an immortal weapon. If Zhushenzong got these things, their strength would undoubtedly skyrocket. It was entirely possible for them to become the largest sect in the cultivation world. But would Murongyu give these things to them casually? Absolutely not. The 8 trigrams immortal robe was fine, but the bow of heaven and earth, especially the army formula and Hichu Luoshu, were supreme magic weapons and cultivation methods. Murongyu would never give them to them. Even if they were Murongyu's relatives, even if he took in disciples in the future, he would probably not impart the army formula to them. Was this Murongyu's selfishness? Of course not. It should be known that once such a supreme existence appeared in front of people, it would definitely shake the world. Rivers of blood would flow, and piles of corpses would be piled up. Most importantly, why would Murongyu give them to Zhushenzong? If he gave them to Zhushenzong, these sanctimonious guys would benefit. It wasn't that Murongyu was overly sensitive. In fact, he'd felt several greedy gazes the moment he'd stepped into the hall. If he had to give these things to these greedy villains, Murongyu would never do it. Moreover, he didn't want to give them to them at all. He suddenly smiled and looked at Zhuang Ningguang and the others, saying, Sect Master, Elders, what did you hear that I had a fortuitous encounter? When did I have a fortuitous encounter? I cultivated the most basic cultivation method of Zhushenzong and used the 2 low-grade flying swords given by the sect. If you want to talk about treasures, this spear of mine is a high-grade magic tool. Do I also have to give this to you? Hearing this, Zhuang Ningguang and the other elders' faces suddenly became ugly. Originally, they all thought that Murongyu would simply go to the stock exchange to get the things. But they didn't expect that Murongyu would actually deny it. There was no fortuitous encounter at all. What did he have to give? If the person involved didn't admit it, were they going to force Murongyu to hand it over? Feng Ningbo sneered and looked at Murongyu with murderous eyes, saying, Murongyu, you're just a revolving reflection stage cultivator. How could you kill a body fusion stage cultivator? If you didn't have a fortuitous encounter, how could you rely on Zhushenzong's basic cultivation method? Murongyu's face became gloomy, and he looked coldly at Feng Ningbo. It seems that you also know that Zhushenzong's basic cultivation method is useless. However, to be able to kill Fei Mingzhong and the others, I didn't use Zhushenzong's cultivation method. If I had used Zhushenzong's cultivation method, I'm afraid that I would have died thousands of times already. Everyone's faces were a bit ugly, but Zhushenzong's basic cultivation method was really useless. This was very normal. These were only the core cultivation methods of the new disciples. As the strength of the sect's disciples became stronger, they would come into contact with more powerful cultivation methods. Not only Zhushenzong, but the other sects were also the same. Although they were embarrassed, everyone's hearts were full of expectation as they looked at Murongyu. They were very curious. How could a mere revolving reflection stage cultivator kill a body fusion stage cultivator? Meeting everyone's gaze, Murongyu sneered in his heart and said, The reason why I killed Fei Mingzhong and the others was not my own power. This isn't my power. I just accidentally activated a broken array formation there. Chapter 96. That's it. The elders' faces darkened. Even Murongyu himself didn't believe it, let alone them. Murongyu didn't care if they believed it or not. So, I didn't have any fortuitous encounters. Sect Master, elders, if there's nothing else, I'll go back first. It's been a long journey back to Zhushenzong. I'm really tired. Goodbye. Before he could finish his sentence, Murongyu turned around to leave. The people from the Origin Void sect have been here, and their target is you. But our sect will protect you. But you know you killed Sun Pingshi's grandson. With your fortuitous encounter, Yuan Su sect is determined to take you down. Without the sect's protection, there will be no place for you in the cultivation world. Murong Yu's face turned cold. He turned to Feng Ningbo and said, Elder Feng, are you threatening me? Sect Master, elders, are you threatening a little disciple like me? Threatening? Ridiculous. You're just an ordinary disciple of the sect. We don't need to fall out with Yuan Su sect for a mere disciple like you. If you don't have any contributions to the sect, then I'm sorry. We won't continue to protect you the next time Yuan Su sect comes. Murong Yu narrowed his eyes and looked at the crowd. Everyone, you still don't believe that I didn't have any fortuitous encounters. I don't have anything. What should I give to the sect? Kid, I think you don't want to hand it over. No matter. I'll see how you quibble after I take you down. Feng Ningbo stepped forward and looked at Murong Yu with murderous intent, ready to take him down. It's my honor that a tribulation passing stage elder is making a move on an ordinary disciple like me. But I wonder what the cultivation world will think of Zhushenzong after this news spreads. Zhushenzong, one of the top 10 sects, is actually so ugly. Someone like you can take up the position of elder. Is there really no one else in Zhushenzong? Or are you all jackals of the same tribe? How dare you? Another elder took a step forward and shouted angrily. What? Are you angry from embarrassment? Murong Yu's anger had been thoroughly ignited. He looked at everyone indifferently and said coldly, If Zhushenzong's higher-ups are all people like you, then I admit that I was blind to join Zhushenzong. Joining such a sect is simply a disgrace in my life. Not to mention that I didn't get anything. Even if I did, I wouldn't give it to you. His words made everyone's faces turn even uglier. Meanwhile, Feng Ningbo and the others were brimming with killing intent. What bullshit 10 great sects? I don't want to be a disciple anymore. From today onwards, I'm leaving Zhushenzong, and I have nothing to do with Zhushenzong anymore. As he spoke, Murong Yu reached into his storage bag and took out the 2 low-grade flying swords that were given by the sect. Then he tore off the storage bag from his waist and threw into the hall. These are all things that you gave me. I really don't care about them. I'll return them to you, Murong Yu said coldly, then turned and left resolutely. Murong Yu's decision to leave the sect seemed to be a spur of the moment. In fact, he had already considered this on his way back. Killing a cultivator in the form synthesis stage was earth-shattering. Everyone would guess that he had a peerless cultivation technique and magic treasure on him. Even Zhushenzong would be suspicious. If Zhushenzong was just asking about it, then it would be fine. However, if Zhushenzong forced him to hand over the cultivation technique because of this, then he couldn't continue to stay in this sect no matter what. Therefore, when Feng Ningbo showed a ferocious expression and Zhuang Ningguang and the others tacitly agreed, Murong Yu immediately decided to leave the sect. You want the cultivation technique? Fine, take me down. Then, even my life will be yours. If you can't take me down, I'm sorry, but I'll leave. At least, this sect didn't give Murong Yu anything to linger on. Leave the sect? Murong Yu, do you think you can leave this hall today? Feng Ningbo sneered and appeared at the entrance of the hall with a murderous look. He blocked Murong Yu's way. Murong Yu immediately flew into a rage and cursed. Surnamed Feng, do you think you can keep me here with just you alone? I can kill Fei Mingzhong in the form synthesis stage. I'm confident that I can kill you in the crossing calamity stage. If you push me too far, I'll fight you to the death. Zhuang Ningguang frowned slightly and muttered to himself. Murong Yu's words clearly indicated that it wasn't a coincidence that he'd killed the body integration stage Fei Mingzhong back then. Instead, he'd used a certain method. If he really pushed Murong Yu too far today, he was afraid that he would fight to the death just like Murong Yu. At that time, he wouldn't get anything. Murong Yu, you better think this through. Zhushenzong is one of the top 10 sects in the cultivation world. They definitely have the ability to protect you. If you step out of this hall today, you won't be Zhushenzong's disciple. If you have any trouble in the future, Zhushenzong will have nothing to do with you. Zhuang Ningguang said in a low voice. Don't worry, sect leader Zhuang. I, Murong Yu, am cheap, but I'm not someone you can kill. I'll remember who's good to me and who's bad to me. When I'm successful in my cultivation, I'll definitely repay you one by one. Morongyu said lightly. At the same time, he moved around Feng Ningbo and was about to leave. Seeing this, Zhuang Ningguang sighed. He knew that he was going to lose Morongyu as his disciple. However, since things had already come to this, what else could he do? Zhuang Ningguang even doubted whether what they did today was the right thing to do. Did they have to force Morongyu to hand over his cultivation method? Or did they have to cultivate him with all their strength? If Morongyu could hand over his cultivation method, Zhushenzong's strength would undoubtedly rise to another level. Even if Morongyu didn't hand it over, they could only cultivate Morongyu with all their strength. In that case, it wouldn't be long before Morongyu became Zhushenzong's mainstay. But now, there was nothing left. Boy, do you think you could just leave like this? Feng Ningbo blocked Morongyu again, his killing intent flashing. Morongyu narrowed his eyes. A cold, killing intent flashed in the depths of his eyes. Morongyu was already filled with killing intent toward Feng Ningbo, who had repeatedly obstructed him. At that moment, he even had the urge to release the golden corpse and kill him. But Morongyu didn't want to use the golden corpse unless it was absolutely necessary. Moreover, this was where Zhushenzong's sect was located. Once the golden corpse was released, even a half-immortal Zhuang Ningguang wouldn't be a match for it. But the golden corpse's terrifying killing intent would also attract those old monsters in Zhushenzong. Those were immortal-level existences. Morongyu wasn't sure if the golden corpse could deal with immortals. Elder Feng, let him leave. Zhuang Ningguang said. Feng Ningbo was startled. He looked at Zhuang Ningguang unwillingly and said, Sect Master, if we let him leave like this, then what will we do? Sect Master, if we let him leave, then we won't get anything. Let him leave. Zhuang Ningguang sighed. Feng Ningbo glared at Morongyu unwillingly. Then, he thought of something and laughed sinisterly. Morongyu, since you're Zhushenzong's disciple and you've left the sect, you must return all the sect's things. 2 flying swords and a storage pouch. These are your things. I've already returned them to you. What else do you have? When I broke through to the Foundation establishment stage, you gave me 5 energy recovery pills. I'll return them to you right away. As he spoke, Morongyu fumbled around in his pocket. Then he took out 5 energy recovery pills and threw them to Feng Ningbo. In fact, whether it was before taking things out of the storage pouch or now, Morongyu had taken them out of the Hichu Luo shoe. He was just using the storage pouch and pocket to cover it up. Seeing this, Feng Ningbo's face turned ashen. Everyone else's face also darkened. Nothing? Return all your cultivation methods to the sect. Feng Ningbo laughed sinisterly. He took a step forward and reached out his hand to grab Morongyu. Morongyu's face suddenly changed. Then he said angrily, Feng Ningbo, what do you mean by this? I've never cultivated any of your Zhushenzong's cultivation methods. Take back the cultivation methods? Feng Ningbo's meaning was obvious. He wanted to directly destroy Morongyu's cultivation. Morongyu had cultivated for 2 years to reach his current cultivation. Moreover, once his cultivation was destroyed, Morongyu would be unable to move an inch in the future. He might not even be able to walk out of Zhushenzong's door before he was killed. In order to prevent the sect's cultivation methods from being leaked, everyone who has been expelled from the sect must take back all their cultivation methods. Erase the memories in your mind. At this time, Zhuang Ningguang said indifferently, destroy Morongyu's cultivation and then erase Morongyu's memories. If they saw his memories, then they would see through all his secrets, such as the army character formula and the Hichu Luoshu world. Absolutely not. Morongyu's anger was completely ignited. It's not up to you to say no. Boy, accept your fate. Feng Ningbo laughed sinisterly and reached out his hand to grab Morongyu. Morongyu's body swayed, and he retreated quickly. Then, he shouted angrily, Sect Leader Zhuang, do you not believe that I've never learned any of your cultivation methods? Do you really want to destroy my cultivation? Zhuang Ningguang did not answer Morongyu's words. Instead, he quietly closed his eyes. Obviously, He had silently agreed. After all, even he could not help but feel a rush of excitement when he heard Murong Yu's secrets. If he just let Murong Yu leave like this, he would feel that it would be a pity. Seeing Zhuang Ningguang's expression, Murong Yu already knew the result. So, he said coldly, "Very well, I, Murong Yu, will remember what you did today. In the future, when I'm successful in my cultivation, I will repay you well." His voice was cold, containing endless anger and grief, as well as soaring murderous intent. "Let's talk about it after you leave this hall." Feng Ningbo sneered and still reached out to grab Murong Yu. "Huh, although I, Murong Yu, have a cheap life, if you want to take me down, you'll have to exchange your lives for it. Today, even if this is Zushinzong, I'll kill all of you. Golden Skeleton, come out and kill." Chapter 97. Golden Skeleton, come out and kill it. Murong Yu yelled and communicated with Hichu in the Hichu Luoshu world with his mind, summoning the golden skeleton immediately. Boom! The void seemed to have cracked, and a golden skeleton appeared out of thin air, landing on top of Feng Ningbo's head in a cross-legged position. At this moment, Murong Yu had already activated the purple ribbon holy robe, and a layer of purple light shrouded him, forming a power shield that protected him firmly inside. When it wasn't attacked, the golden skeleton only flickered with a faint golden light, and it was no different from an ordinary skeleton. If it wasn't attacked, the murderous intent contained in the golden skeleton wouldn't erupt. However, Murong Yu summoned it with the purpose of killing the enemy. Therefore, when the golden skeleton pressed down on Feng Ningbo, who was on the ground, Feng Ningbo reacted immediately. He sneered, and the big hand that was originally grabbing Murong Yu turned into a fist and punched the golden skeleton fiercely. In his opinion, Murong Yu wouldn't summon this golden skeleton for no reason, and there must be something strange about it. Therefore, his punch contained 70% of his strength. However, no one would have thought that this was the strange thing about the golden skeleton. How terrifying was 70% of the strength of a tribulation stage cultivator? Even a towering mountain would be smashed to smithereens by this punch. Therefore, the moment this vast and terrifying ocean-like power hit the golden skeleton was struck by the power. Boom! At this moment, the golden skeleton suddenly burst out with a golden color that was brighter than the sun in the sky, dazzling and glaring. At the same time, a monstrous and earth-shattering murderous intent erupted from the golden skeleton, sweeping in all directions and attacking indiscriminately. The first to bear the brunt was Feng Ningbo. A strong sense of danger rose from the bottom of his heart. Feng Ningbo was shocked, and he immediately increased his strength to the limit and attacked the golden skeleton. Boom! The endless murderous intent rushed over like a torrent, and the power that Feng Ningbo blasted out was instantly shattered. The endless murderous intent blasted out at an incomparably fast speed. Feng Ningbo's body shone brightly, and a thick layer of power was released by him, forming a shield that firmly protected him inside. Poof! However, the shield that condensed all his strength was completely vulnerable under the attack of the golden skeleton, and it was shattered at the moment of contact. However, Feng Ningbo was also a tribulation stage cultivator after all, and his strength and reaction speed were far beyond that of ordinary people. The moment the shield shattered, he felt that something bad was going to happen, so he immediately took out all his defensive Dharma treasures. A spiritual immortal robe on his body, and a pagoda-shaped Dharma treasure that emitted a gray light above his head. A flying sword emitting a powerful aura appeared in his hand. It was also a flying sword of the spirit artifact level. It seemed that this guy had a lot of treasures. However, under the impact of the golden skeleton of unknown origin, how could these things that were only at the level of spiritual weapons resist? Bang! Bang! The pagoda-shaped Dharma treasure above his head was immediately smashed to pieces. Then, the immortal robe on his body was also directly shattered. At this moment, Feng Ningbo was terrified. He increased his strength to the limit, and the long sword in his hand burst out a bright light. And then he slashed at the golden skeleton. Boom! No matter how Feng Ningbo attacked, his strength was so weak in front of the golden skeleton. All his attacks were shattered at the first moment. At the same time that he attacked, Feng Ningbo had already turned around and fled. This golden skeleton was really strange, and it was too terrifying. However, how could Feng Ningbo, a mere tribulation stage cultivator, escape so easily? After hearing a shrill scream, the Zhushenzong tribulation stage elder was suddenly strangled into a cloud of blood mist, and he couldn't be more dead. After saying so much, it seemed like a long time had passed. However, all of this happened in an instant. After Feng Ningbo was killed, the endless murderous intent of the golden skeleton swept in all directions. After Feng Ningbo, several elders in the hall who were not in the tribulation stage were immediately killed and turned into blood mist. They didn't even have time to use their Dharma treasures. However, several elders in the tribulation stage and the half-immortal Zhuang Ningguang, who were far away from the golden skeleton, had already reacted. Not only did he increase his strength to the limit, but he also used all his Dharma treasures in front of him. Boom! An earth-shattering sound spread far and wide. At that moment, the empty sky school's disciples in the surroundings of the conference hall looked towards the source of the sound. However, they saw that the conference hall, which was like a sacred place in their hearts, had been destroyed by something. It had actually exploded and turned into fragments. An extremely terrifying golden light, which contained an extremely terrifying murderous intent, shot up to the sky and covered the earth. It was very terrifying. Zhuang Ningguang, you Zhushenzong plotted to steal my cultivation method. Murong Yu, you want to forcibly seize my memory. Although I, Murong Yu, am weak, I won't do as you wish. I will perish together with you. At the moment when the conference hall was destroyed, a purple light shot up from the ground to the sky. At the same time, Murong Yu's indignant voice spread far and wide, covering most of the Zhushenzong area. What? The sect leader and the elders are plotting to steal Murong Yu's cultivation method? Upon hearing that voice, the numerous disciples of the Void Sky sect were shocked. They were extremely shocked. Zhuang Ningguang, even if I die today, I won't let you succeed. While everyone was shocked, Murong Yu's indignant voice came from afar. What's going on? The golden light, which shot up to the sky, contained a terrifying murderous intent. When Murong Yu's sorrowful and indignant voice rang out, many of the Void Sky sect's disciples looked at each other in dismay. Quite a few of them had already started flying towards the source of the voice. The disciples near the main hall saw that it had been blasted into smithereens. Murong Yu rushed out of the conference hall, spitting out blood in the void. At this point, many people had believed Murong Yu's words, because there was a great battle going on there, and it was obvious that Murong Yu was at a disadvantage. Facing the murderous intent of the golden skeleton, Zhuang Ningguang and the others were extremely embarrassed. Zhuang Ningguang was in a better situation because he was the sect leader and had Zhushenzong's fairy weapon in his hand. When he realized that something was wrong, he had already used his fairy weapon to protect himself. Therefore, although his chi and blood were surging due to the endless murderous intent of the golden skeleton, he was not injured. Immediately, he retreated far away. However, the elders in the conference hall suffered a tragedy. All the elders below the crossing calamity stage were killed. Even a few elders at the crossing calamity stage were killed. In the end, including Zhuang Ningguang, there were only 2 or 3 of them left in the conference hall. In fact, Murong Yu was not in a good condition at this time. Although the purple ribbon holy robe was a fairy weapon, and he had also used the Hichu Luo Shu to protect himself. However, the endless murderous intent of the golden skeleton was too terrifying. Although Murong Yu had many layers of protection, his chi and blood were still surging, and he spat out blood. However, because he was very familiar with the golden skeleton, he had rushed out as soon as he used the golden skeleton. Therefore, he was only injured and spat out blood. Whoosh! Whoosh! Several figures flew over from the front of the Void Sky sect. The first thing they saw was the shattered main hall, followed by Zhuang Ningguang and the others, who were in a sorry state. Next was Murong Yu, whose face was filled with grief and indignation. Hearing Murong Yu's words, Zhuang Ningguang and the others were furious. Murong Yu's words made it clear that they were plotting to steal Murong Yu. In fact, they were plotting to steal Murong Yu's belongings. However, they were very secretive before, and now Murong Yu told the world about it. Elder Gao, you go and take down Murong Yu. I'll deal with this skeleton. Zhuang Ningguang said to the elder at the crossing calamity stage who was not killed. Elder Gao nodded and then rushed into the void with teleportation. He stretched out his big hand and attacked Murong Yu. At the same time, Zhuang Ningguang grabbed in the air and took out a flying sword with a powerful aura, the Void Heaven Sword. The Void Heaven Sword was the sword of the founder of Zhushenzong, the Void Heaven Sword. It was a high-grade fairy weapon. It had always been one of the most powerful fairy weapons of Zhushenzong. Zhuang Ningguang held the fairy weapon with a dignified expression. He forced his half-immortal cultivation into the fairy weapon in his hand. The fairy weapon emitted a dazzling light. An extremely terrifying aura burst out. Then, the sword light burst out. An incomparably terrifying sword light split the sky and earth, splitting open a huge crack in the void, and ruthlessly chopped down on the golden skeleton on the ground. Boom! The golden skeleton was directly sent flying by the terrifying sword light. However, the moment the golden skeleton was attacked, a murderous intent dozens of times stronger than before burst out from the golden skeleton. The dazzling golden light was extremely dazzling. At this moment, wherever the golden light passed, the void shattered and the mountain shattered. Mournful screams continued to spread far and wide. Wherever the golden light passed, everything was shattered into pieces. Within 100 miles, the mountains were razed to the ground. Countless disciples of Zhushenzong who rushed over were immediately turned into a bloody mist. Thousands of disciples of the Void Sky sect were caught in the crossfire and killed by this single attack. Even Zhuang Ningguang, who attacked, was sent flying with blood spurting out of his mouth. The fairy weapon on his body was also shattered. If it wasn't for the fact that he was a half-immortal and possessed unparalleled speed, he would have teleported away the moment he sensed that something was amiss. Otherwise, he would have been killed instantly. Chapter 98. However, the Transcending Tribulation Stage elders were not so lucky. Like the other disciples of Zhushenzong, they were directly blasted into a bloody mist. Even Murong Yu, who was in the void, disappeared. No one knew if he was dead or alive. As the sect master of Zhushenzong, Zhuang Ningguang had a few immortal artifacts in his possession, an extremely powerful Void Heaven Sword and an immortal robe. Although there were immortals in the immortal world, there was still a huge gap between these immortals and those in the immortal world. This was because they were only Earth immortals and had not ascended yet. Earth immortals who had not ascended were compared to real immortals, although their physical bodies had all transformed into immortal bodies. However, their abilities and strength were far inferior to those of true immortals. Moreover, they did not have immortal artifacts. Immortal artifacts were artifacts used by immortals and could only be found in the immortal world. Today, there were not many immortal artifacts in the entire cultivation world. Even Zhushenzong, one of the top 10 sects, only had a limited number of them. It was Zhushenzong's most powerful artifact. At this moment, Zhuang Ningguang was holding the Void Heaven Sword with trembling hands. The corners of his mouth were stained with blood, and his chest was dyed red with blood. The immortal robe on his body was dull and had been blasted into pieces. An immortal artifact was destroyed just like that. While Zhuang Ningguang was shocked, he also felt a burst of pain. This was an immortal artifact, the sect's immortal artifact. Now that it was destroyed in his hands, how could he explain this to Zhushenzong? Pooh! Thinking of this, Zhuang Ningguang could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Although the immortal robe had blocked most of the attack, the robe was also shattered. However, the half-immortal Zhuang Ningguang was still seriously injured. His meridians were shattered and many of his bones were shattered. If it were not for the immortal robe, he would have been smashed into pieces. At this moment, because it was no longer attacked, the golden skeleton no longer emitted a strong, killing intent. Instead, it sat quietly on the messy ground, its body flickering with a faint golden light. Seeing this scene, Zhuang Ningguang seemed to have realized something. They're all dead. More than a dozen elders, including several tribulation passing stage elders, as well as thousands of Zhushenzong disciples who rushed over after hearing the news, were all killed and turned into a cloud of blood mist. He was also seriously injured. At this moment, Zhuang Ningguang finally realized that what Murong Yu had said earlier was not a threat. Instead, he really had the ability to do so. Mutual destruction. Fight to the death. Now, Zhushenzong was in a life-and-death struggle, and Murong Yu had been blown to pieces. At least, that was what Zhuang Ningguang thought. He did not think that Murong Yu could survive under the indiscriminate attack of the golden skeleton. So many people had died, including Murong Yu. Zhushenzong had nothing to gain. Zhuang Ningguang sighed in his heart and then looked at the golden skeleton. This skeleton was very strange. It could even shatter immortal weapons. He was definitely an immortal. Although so many people had died, if he could subdue this golden skeleton, it might become the biggest trump card of the sect. Zhuang Ningguang slowly walked toward the golden skeleton with this thought in mind. At this moment, he had vaguely guessed that as long as he did not attack the golden skeleton, the terrifying killing intent would not erupt. Whoosh! However, at this moment, the golden skeleton that was sitting quietly on the ground suddenly disappeared. Murong Yu is not dead yet. Zhuang Ningguang reacted immediately. He held the immortal weapon Void Heaven Sword in his hand and slashed out fiercely. A dazzling sword light suddenly burst out, tearing the void and shattering the sky. It also cut the ground into pieces. However, it was useless. It did not force Murong Yu out of the void at all. Zhuang Ningguang's face was gloomy. He held the Void Heaven Sword in his hand and shot out dazzling sword lights, slashing horizontally and vertically. For a moment, the terrifying sword lights shrouded the area within 100 miles. Hundreds of millions of sword lights strangled everything, not leaving a single inch of the void. However, Murong Yu and the golden skeleton seemed to have appeared out of thin air and never appeared again. Zhuang Ningguang, you colluded with the elders of the sect and tried to steal my cultivation method and magic treasure. I will kill more than a dozen elders of the crossing calamity stage now. When I succeed in my cultivation, I will definitely come back to take your life. Just as Zhuang Ningguang was attacking the surrounding void, Murong Yu's voice came from afar. He really is not dead. Zhuang Ningguang's face was very ugly. The Void Heaven Sword in his hand trembled. He wanted to attack, but he did not know where to attack. He could only listen to Murong Yu's words with an extremely ugly expression. Everyone of Zhushenzong, today's matter is obvious to all. I, Murong Yu, did not commit treason by killing the elders of the sect. They really pushed me too far. I was just defending myself. Here, I, Murong Yu, would like to advise everyone that a sect that only fishes for fame should not continue to stay in this place. Otherwise, what happened to me will happen to you one day. Everyone, please bear this in mind. From today onwards, I, Murong Yu, am leaving Zhushenzong. I have nothing to do with Zhushenzong. I am leaving. Boom! Before Murong Yu's voice fell, he saw a big hand reaching out from the depths of Zhushenzong. The huge hand shattered the firmament and grabbed down from the 9 heavens, directly grabbing at a certain spot in the void. Oh, old monster, you are too powerful. Retreat. Murong Yu screamed. His voice instantly disappeared. The big hand that appeared out of thin air attacked again and again. It shattered countless space-time, but it still could not force Murong Yu out. Murong Yu, on the other hand, seemed to have already left. Zhuang Ningguang was shocked when he saw the big hand attack. His figure flashed, and an old man appeared in front of Zhuang Ningguang. Master! Zhuang Ningguang was shocked. It turned out that this old man was his master, Zhuxianzong's previous sect leader. He was a first-step immortal. What happened? Zhang Jing asked with a gloomy face when he saw the mess around him. Zhuang Ningguang did not dare to hide anything in front of his master. Therefore, he told him everything. Stupid. Extremely stupid. Zhuang Ningguang, you are becoming worse and worse as a sect leader. Don't you know the severity of the matter? Zhang Jing sighed in his heart. The reason why he passed the position of sect leader to Zhuang Ningguang was that Zhuang Ningguang was not only talented in cultivation, but he also admired the way he handled things. However, he did not expect Zhuang Ningguang to deal with this matter in such a way. Was that Morongyu just now? Even I can't take him down. You should think about how to explain this to the sect. Zhang Jing sighed. His figure flashed and disappeared. Even Master, a first-step immortal, can't take down Morongyu? Zhuang Ningguang was stunned. At this moment, he finally realized what a stupid thing he had done. Morongyu was only at the revolving reflection stage. However, even a first-step immortal could not take him down. Then, what if he was even more powerful? Would he have the strength to challenge an immortal? With Murongyu's character and ruthlessness, he would definitely not let Zhuxianzong go. When Morongyu came back for revenge, Zhuxianzong would not be able to bear it. On the other side, Morongyu had already left Zhuxianzong by relying on his relationship with Hichu Luoshu. Hichu, was that an immortal? Why was he so terrifying? Morongyu's face was pale, and he coughed up a few mouthfuls of blood. He asked with lingering fear. Just now, when the golden skeleton attacked, he entered the Hichu Luoshu world in time. Therefore, he was not injured. Later, he took the opportunity to take back the golden skeleton. At that time, Morongyu felt that Zhuang Ningguang was seriously injured. At that time, he wanted to kill Zhuang Ningguang as well. However, in the end, he gave up on this idea. After all, he was just a revolving reflection stage cultivator. If it were not for the Hichu Luoshu and the golden skeleton, he would be nothing. Even if the seriously injured Zhuang Ningguang was standing in front of Morongyu, Morongyu would not be able to kill him with his current strength. Of course, if Morongyu was at the combination stage at this time, he would definitely not let go of this opportunity. After taking back the golden skeleton, Morongyu could not help but say those words before he left. However, he did not expect that it would attract Zhang Jing, a one-step immortal. With one grab, even Morongyu, who was hiding in the Hichu Luoshu, was seriously injured. If Hichu had not reacted in time and activated the defensive function of the Hichu Luoshu, Morongyu would have been blown into a cloud of blood mist. Just a one-step immortal. You have not become an earth immortal. Otherwise, you would have been seriously injured by that attack. He did not know what material the Hichu Luoshu was used to make it. In the world, nothing could destroy it. However, Hichu had been beaten up and his defense was limited. Moreover, Morongyu's strength was really unbearable. Otherwise, so what if he was a one-step immortal? He still could not hurt Morongyu. Just a one-step immortal? Morongyu was a little shocked. At the same time, he felt that he was in danger. What are you going to do now? Hichu asked. Let's recuperate first. After killing so many people from Zhuxianzong, they will definitely not let me go. There's also the Yuansu sect. Now that we don't have Zhuxianzong's protection, I'm afraid there is no place for us in the entire cultivation world. Morongyu said in a deep voice. However, I'm afraid that the news of you having the golden skeleton has already spread. Those juniors will not dare to trouble you. However, it is also time for you to improve your strength. The revolving reflection stage is really too weak. Morongyu nodded and burned the pills. The time inside the Hichu Luoshu flowed 20 times faster and began to heal his injuries. Half a day passed in the outside world, but Morongyu had been in the Hichu Luoshu for 10 days. At this time, his injuries were completely healed. Then, he drove the Hichu Luoshu away from Zhuxianzong and walked out of the Hichu Luoshu. Then, He drove the long spear and flew in the direction of the hidden fairy valley. He was going to cultivate in seclusion, but before that, he had to make a trip to the hidden fairy valley. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.